everyone, and welcome to another episode of Chud Watch. How are you all doing? I'm Hannah, your host, and today, oh boy, we have something different for you. You all remember January 6th, we were here broadcasting live, watching the mayhem unfold. It was quite an interesting day. A lot of people got arrested, if not on the day. Later they were picked up. 3 of these gentlemen have gotten together while in prison and decided, hey, we're in prison all day, we have nothing to do. How about we start a show on the internet? I've been there. I know how it is. So we're gonna watch these January 6th defendants do an internet show. It's gonna be interesting. The audio is a little off for the first little bit, especially on the guy on the left. But it does pick up a little bit partway through. They learned to like talking to the mic better. So just be aware of that. And I think that's it. Harold Elbman, thanks for a 3-stream streak, says, my wife and I are getting ready to go to Pride Shabbat. Hopefully we'll get a better welcome than we did at a different synagogue at Jazz Shabbat. Psychotropic Thunder, thanks for 35 months. We're caught up. ABC Archives, how you doing? So... Oh, I didn't realize this was the Ace flag colors. I just like purple. Did I see this? It depends on what this is.
These 2 geezers for president. Again. It's like we're cursed. I'm starting to think we shouldn't have built this country on an ancient Indian burial ground.
Oh, I've heard that joke before. Alright, let's get into it. Oh, by the way, the title of this is called the DC Gulag Podcast. You know how when you're locked in a gulag, they let you podcast?
January 6th was the day that 4 innocent patriots were killed. Hundreds...
By the way, the 4 people who were killed, I looked this up. We all know Ashley Babbitt, of course. Shot through the heart. And she's to blame. You get it. Boyland was trampled by other January 6ers. So she was the victim of January 6 people. And the other 2, I believe one had a heart attack and one had a stroke. So Ashley Babbitt was the only one that was actually killed by anyone other than the January 6ers. Or some other thing that was probably being exacerbated by how hectic things were.
More of us were rounded up and placed in solitary confinement. For many of us, this lasted a year, and we were also denied
Yeah, some cops died from sustained injuries, and several committed self-deletion within the year.
Visitation with
The families noted, I think, that they thought the event had something to do with it, but I don't know enough about it to speak to that.
our families for 2 years. Most of us are still incarcerated, with sentences reaching up to 22 years.
Oh no, did you go to jail for a while for trying to overthrow the government? That's a bummer.
The Proud Boys and Oath Keepers were falsely accused of seditious conspiracy and given the highest sentence.
They were falsely accused except for all the evidence that they conspired to do so, and then they did so, at least attempted.
Joe Biden and the corrupt DOJ owe these patriots a special apology. Enrique, Ethan, Joe, Zach, and Dominic are some of my best friends. They are my brothers. I've been close with the Oath Keepers too. I can assure you that they are truly innocent and are being persecuted to silence their voices.
Oh, I trust you, definitely. You as someone who's very close with the Oath Keepers who have been imprisoned for sedition against the United States. You who also have been imprisoned for crimes related to this event. You're impartial, so why shouldn't I believe you that they've been they've been shafted? You seem like an honest fella.
It's actually ridiculous to believe that these highly intelligent goofballs considered it even possible to take over the US government.
2 things. Comparing yourself to Nelson Mandela, go fuck yourself. Secondly, I don't know if you know this, your crime doesn't have to be intelligent for it to be a crime. Fun fact. Oh, by the way, I also did pull up videos of the people on this podcast, or news reports about what they actually did on January 6th. They weren't just hanging out in the rotunda. They were straight up punching cops. Which under different contexts, you know, but this context, nah, this is a don't punch cops situation.
They're good men. The truth is that on January 6th, a massive crowd of American patriots confronted a seriously understaffed police force at the U.S. Capitol.
Radicalization says, it was searching for coverage of January 6th that led me to stumbling on your channel 4 fucking years ago. Weeps for lost youth.
The cops panicked and started attacking the crowd with explosives, rubber bullets, and other tactics without proper warnings.
This background music is the default stock sound in iMovie and GarageBand. Why not? Why fix it? It's not broken. Just use it. It's fine.
So the crowd stormed into the building. After a year of Chinese bioweapon lockdowns,
also, hold on, I gotta go back for that explanation.
To believe that these highly intelligent goofballs considered it even possible to take over the U.S. government. They're good men. The truth is that on January 6th, a massive crowd of American patriots confronted a seriously understaffed police force at the U.S. Capitol. The cops panicked and started attacking the crowd with explosives, rubber bullets, and other tactics without proper warnings, so the crowd stormed into the building.
Let me get this straight. You are saying that unprovoked, the cops started shooting you with rubber bullets and beating you, and instead of running away, which would be the typical response of, oh no, I'm being unjustly attacked by the police, everyone scatter. Your thought was, I'm being attacked by the police, so let's storm into the Capitol building. That doesn't even make sense. And also, that's not what happened. We watched it live. I was live that day. We watched it happen. Live. No. You all pushed in and started attacking and pushing the cops to get through the barriers to storm the building. Which you did. That's why you're in jail.
After a year of Chinese bioweapon lockdowns, censorship, and an unfair stolen election.
Wait a minute, you're telling me that these January 6ers also believe in conspiracy theories? I don't know, that doesn't add up. Radicalization says, by the by, my granddad was in an actual gulag in Siberia. That's the place to go to one. It's like if you're gonna go to a KFC, go to the one in Kentucky, you know? The famous one. Anyway, he almost got executed over a mistaken case of subversion. He said they all had a good laugh afterwards after not being shot. Not being shot is a good time to laugh. Also after being shot. Go on a high note. Stone Corbell, thanks for 48 months.
Once the cops attacked us, we the people raised our middle finger to the system that has been oppressing our citizens for too long. If there is anyone who can understand this struggle, it is our black brothers and sisters around the country.
Oh yeah, here's this one. They're trying to be like, we're in jail! Why don't black Americans like us? 'Cause they're racist, you see? And also the guy they chose to show during this was the guy that went to jail that we've covered before that has a literal Hitler mustache. This guy is a literal neo-Nazi. We've covered him on this show. Like, why did you pick him? He's a neo-Nazi with a Hitler mustache, and you showed his picture. No one made you do this. You chose to use him.
The same system that has been taking out your leaders and oppressing your people is doing the same thing to Donald Trump and to our America First movement. The J6 hostages are good men of all races, religions, and sexual orientations. That is the truth.
Has the January 6th movement gone woke? Stone Corbell says, kicking off a Friday night hype train. Oh yeah, it is Friday! Congrats, everyone. You made it.
It's time.
Sit by the fire, and I will tell you a story of people who went to prison for very stupid reasons.
That every American who wants freedom, liberty, and justice for all unite behind Donald Trump.
Unless you voted for Biden, then you need to be strung up, apparently.
We, the people, can finally fix the corrupt, weaponized, and oppressive government we have all been victimized by. Let's make America great again. Uhuru.
Oh boy, so let's look at these guys and what they did before they actually start talking. Steve with a Q says, needs different bits, and that kicks off a hype train. Ashley 1UP says, but as we all know, these people are really Antifa plants. They don't mention that, which is interesting in this. I don't think they mention Republicans calling them plants, which is a shame, because I wonder how they feel about that. Paradona says, we marched against racism and police brutality. Y'all marched to keep Trump in power. We're not the same. Oh yeah, and you're gonna see that comparison brought up a lot in this podcast. I've already listened to this. They're gonna bring up, like, oh, but the city's being burned to the ground. You know, that trope. So that's gonna get annoying. Get used to it. So let's go left to right, because I am, American. Let's go ahead and look at what they did to get arrested. First, the guy on the left, Reed Christensen. Let me pull up the video of him punching a cop. I can't see my... That's weird. I can't see my cursor. Where did it go? There it is. Overthought says, this is wild. If these were all people of color prisoners, there's no way they'd let them stay in the same cell block, let alone record podcasts. I know, I don't understand. Like, does the jail know they're doing this, or do they have a contraband phone or something? I don't get it. Riotous Bunny Queen, thanks for 32 months. Unstable Deadbeat says, you're listening to this twice? Thanks for your noble sacrifice, Hannah. I'm doing my best. 85% to level 1. Okay, so here he is, the first gentleman, Reed Christensen, on January 6th, 2021. Oh, there's a punch. No, it's okay, it's Italian Shakespeare. We're good. So that's him attacking cops. The second, John Milley. I believe this is him. He was the guy with the cowboy hat and the stick. Remember the guy with the stick that was poking it at the cops? He was stick guy.
And in Virginia, the feds have charged Jonathan Mellis of Williamsburg. He's now in custody. He's accused of attacking Capitol police officers with a stick. Charging documents claim Mellis posted photos of himself right there in the middle of the riot. You can see him in that cowboy hat in these photos. Prosecutors claim you can hear Mellis telling others to knock off police gas masks. He could face more than 20 years in prison if convicted.
Do I think we'll see Republicans pushing prison reform after this? No, I don't think so. It would help people they don't like too much. And then the final guy, let me see. There was a quick video about that.
And new here at 9 o'clock, a Southern California man has been sentenced to more than 4 years in prison for his role in the breach of the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, 2021. 29-year-old Edward Badalian of Panorama City was convicted of conspiracy and other charges. According to evidence presented at trial, he made threats of violence against President Biden following the 2020 election. On January 6th, he entered the Capitol building through a broken window, then ransacked offices and broke down doors and windows.
So that's what these fine gentlemen find themselves in this jail for.
Hello, welcome to the DC Gulag. My name is John Mellis. I'm here with Edward Badalian and Reed Christensen. We are...
Oh, I do want to point out, of course, we have the picture of Trump in the very center. We have a few Bibles. We have 1984 by George Orwell, because of course we have that in view. I think those are the only ones that are legible to me at the moment. Nemesaur, holy crap, thank you for gifting 20 tier 1 subs. I really appreciate it. You've always been like very generous with subs, but it feels like lately it's been even more so. Thank you.
We're here in the Patriot Pod with about 30 other J6 detainees.
The Patriot block. Yeah, they need to not be having all these guys in the same area, because holy shit, this is clearly a problem. They're all continuing to radicalize each other and egg each other on. None of them are realizing anything they've done is wrong. They are only more emboldened. 3% to level 5 on the hype train.
Thank you for tuning in. Edward and I will be interviewing Reed right now. Our goal here is to have a conversation in order to get to know him, his background, his views, and anything else that comes up. He is a J6er, as are we. Hopefully this conversation will give the American people some very much needed insight.
The Save the Kid book is likely anti-abortion. Wouldn't surprise me. I guess I didn't look it up.
Into the truth about J6ers and what makes us tick. We all know the mainstream media narrative so far is a complete lie.
Do we? Do we all know that? We're doing presuppositionalism over the innocence of January 6th? Okay, guess you know your audience.
If you would like to see more content like this or get to know us J6ers better in our own words, please visit wearegoodmen.com.
Yeah, I did pull up that website as well. wearegoodmen.com. This is a website that is open, has little things about them. Lots of articles about them, interviews they've done. I'm actually going to save this because it's a good resource for Chud Watch, because it's a lot of ways to get looking at videos featuring these people.
And if you would like to check out Reed's book right here, Save the Kid, which is an amazing read. We've read it and we love it. Please visit SaveTheKid.com.
Oh, the site's real bad.
Go get
It's got graphic design as our passion energy. Web design is our passion.
the book, man. It is really good. It's really worth your time. We're going to be talking about it a little bit later in the show. But
it's a really good book.
They really need to get like another American flag to hang up on the other side of the room to dampen some of this echo. I don't mean to be like an armchair audio technician, but holy shit, the echo in this room is so bad and everything is so hollow. Please put up another sheet or something. Like, this is all batshit, and I don't want this to catch on. But if you're gonna do it, do it.
It's like probably the best book that's there, and it's out about J6 right now. So
yeah, absolutely.
Definitely, you guys have to read it.
Yeah, please go check it out.
Is that a faded bed sheet American flag? It is. It looks like they made this themselves, which I guess, yeah, how else would they get an American flag? So it looks like they made a 13 colonies American flag out of a bed sheet, and the stars, I can't tell if they're cloth or made of duct tape. They kind of don't look like they're fully sewn on, so I can't tell. Either way, yeah, that's their makeshift American flag. I wonder if they chose the 13 to reference, like the Revolutionary War, or if they just didn't want to cut out 50 stars. I would accept either. This podcast is in prison! Yes, they are in prison in podcasting! They're prison casting! They're casting from their pods!
SaveTheKid.com. That's all right. So let's get started. I'd like to just ask you some simple questions, like,
Sorry, there was a hydrate 6 minutes ago I missed from Phoenix Leftist.
where were you born? Like, give us a little bit about, family background. You seem.
How are they allowed to do this? I don't know if they are, or if they're just doing it with, like, a contraband phone, and they're, like, this is the first episode. So they may have just not gotten caught yet. This was uploaded yesterday. So I don't know if the prison just doesn't know, or what, but it doesn't seem like they'd be okay with this.
Sure. Yeah. Sure.
So I'm 65 years old. I was born in 1958, and I was born in an Air Force family. My dad was in what was called Air Defense Command. He was one of the top 10 fighter pilots in Air Defense Command. And but he wasn't like a Ted Cruz kind of fighter pilot. He was a quiet, very.
Like I said, this guy on the left, his audio is a little janky during the first little bit. It does clear up a little bit into the podcast. I'll try and do the voice boost that I have an option for and turn it up a bit. He is a little rough, though.
Quiet, very spoke. Quiet guy, very religious. My mom.
Thank you for that hype train, everyone. Incredible.
Well, she's passed away in 2019, but she was a very beautiful, cultured English major, and they were married 65 years, so she died in 2019.
Wow.
And as far as I can remember, the whole time they were married, if my dad ever slipped back into his dairyman English grammar, my mom would correct him. But I'm pretty sure that after 30 years he was doing it the teaser. Right. So, yes, we grew up in the Air Force. I have to say my dad was my first hero. I mean, he was fighting communists, strong, religious.
His dad was fighting communists, and now you're in prison for fighting imaginary ones. He'd be so proud.
Great guy. He was my first hero.
What prison are they in? It's in D.C., so whatever the prison is in D.C., I guess.
Nice. So and then in the 1970s, we were stationed in Great Falls, Montana. So that's where I went the last couple years of high school. And I met my wife there. We were both the same age. I met her when I was 17.
Okay, I'm actually going to skip through this initial section because it's even worse than it was on my phone through headphones. Holy crap.
Started with the walker.
So, working.
I never had any paralysis, never had memory loss, so I'm probably on that ramp myself. But I'm very fortunate because I didn't have any paralysis. After my second stroke, I have limb pain, and I can't feel hot and cold on my left side, which is weird. But it's not debilitating.
Yeah.
Right, thank God.
Well, so one thing I also wanted to touch on during these years of, working in the military and with Intel and raising a family, and it seems like you had a pretty busy life, pretty full. But I want to know a little bit more about your hobbies and interests. Like what kind of things you do for fun, all these years.
Occasionally I do a little bit of sedition on the side.
So, I had a big hobby, and it was 16 acres of Willamette Valley farmland, the best farmland in America.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the place that people would walk from St. Louis, Missouri, 1,500 miles to get to the Oregon.
Yeah.
And so we had 16 acres there. And my wife and I both feel the way that we got it, that it was like God saved it for us.
Yeah.
And we just loved it. When we got it, it was kind of run down. The family there hadn't done much with it, so it needed a lot of work. The house was only 6 years old, but it was torn up pretty badly. And the property was, well, the good thing about Oregon is you get lots of ranch, you get lots of greenery. The bad thing is, if you got weeds, they grow like crazy. So they had, but nobody talked about the fact that Oregon's had Hope on Hill for 30 years. Right. And apparently honest election, and we'll accept the results.
Yeah.
There we go, getting closer to
Right. Since that time, none.
So
I just kept saying, well, okay, Republicans, what are we going to do about this? And nobody was talking about it. It was like, oh, we'll just get more people to vote and we'll win. If you have a corrupt...
Yeah, get more people to vote and you would win. Yep, that's how it works. I'm sorry This frustrates me so much about Republicans, that at this point half of them are like, but we're not getting what we want! Yes, if you want to win in a representative democracy, you need to have opinions, you need to have policies that are popular. You can't just be like, I don't want to change our policy positions, but we still want to win. That's not how it works.
A closed, corruptible election system, so you don't know what people are doing. You got to trust people not to cheat. Well, I didn't trust Democrats in that state that much. And I was encouraged Republicans to basically say, as an opposition party, we're not going to accept a closed, corruptible election. If you want us to accept the results, you hold a one-day, in-person, voter ID, open, transparently honest election, and we'll accept the results.
Yeah.
No, you won't. The last election, there were so many fucking audits, there were so many investigations and court cases, and it found no irregularities. In fact, when there were cases where they found votes that weren't counted, there were more for Biden, which was quite funny. You just don't like that you lost, and you unfortunately got pulled in by conspiracy theories on the internet that forced you into a place where you believed that no matter what the evidence is, that the election was illegitimate, which led you to take drastic action on January 6th, which ruined your life. The guy on the far left is 65 years old. He might be spending the rest of his life in prison because he believed Donald Trump was going to be the greatest and take over the country illegally, but it would be good, man. Genius. Stephen J. Neptune Man says, most Americans don't live their lives thinking, how can I own the libs? Which makes it difficult for Republicans to win because that's their entire MO now.
And usually when I said that at a Republican forum, I got dead silence.
Yeah, because it's apparently this establishment of Republicans and rhinos also benefit from the election stealing methods that they use it to kick out and push out real pro-America candidates.
I think that's true.
So they also, I guess to them, that would explain why they think that, like, down-ballot Republicans were able to win in 2020, whereas Trump wasn't. That's because they're the rhinos. They're part of the Uniparty. It's stupid, but at least they have some sort of internal thinking. That does clear a little bit up.
I think that there's a lot of Americans who don't want to open their eyes and face.
You think after sitting in prison, they'd realize they'd been hoodwinked, but apparently not. Right? Trump didn't even pardon them. Just started watching, is this some sort of prison book club? It's a book club in the sense that there are books there. I don't know how literate any of them are. That's mean. That's just an ad hominem. Rude, Hannah. Rude.
You know about Dr. Shiva and his lawsuit that he did for the election?
The name sounds familiar.
Yeah, so his lawsuit was the only one that didn't get just rejected outright. And it's because he was actually suing the Republican Party as a Republican because they used it against him in the primary. And he did, and that's where that discovery, in the discovery of his lawsuit came the handbook that Twitter has and the portal that Twitter has for government officials to log in and have and choose which post they want to censor. And then discovered also that the voting machines, instead of counting votes by whole numbers, they count it with decimal points. So, and that feature was put in there for HOA elections, so someone's vote can count more than someone else. I guess that has more property or whatever.
What are you talking about? The only thing that causes votes in presidential elections to be worth more than others is the electoral college, and that weighs in favor of Republicans. What are you talking about? Fenigami says, but Hannah, the people they trust told them that it happened. It must be true. Never mind that most of the legit evidence they use is from elections after 2020. Gitara says, that may be rude, but to be fair, they're in prison for a reason, I guess.
But they didn't remove that feature for the general election. And so his votes, he had like 60% of the vote count, or the polls were on his side, and then 40% were
I think the rudeness was more that it made it seem like I was saying that illiteracy was a moral failing rather than a failing of society to help teach youth. But I overthink things, so. Toreador says, what is this, the Trump fan club? Yeah, don't you see? Can't you tell? That's why they're all wearing orange. It's Trump's color.
on the rhino side, the designated loser. And then on voting day, it flipped. The rhino got 60%, he got 40%, and then that rhino, of course, went to lose to the Democrat. So I guess that's one of the topics of your book is that nobody is fighting back against these election stealing methods.
Yeah, that's why I got involved in the governor race, and then in the middle of that, in May, I had my second stroke. And it was not as bad for the walking stuff, but
like the little edited in Chiron at the bottom to buy his fucking book. H-Bird says, people become fascists due to feeling insecure and weak. Accepting that you were fooled into doing evil requires a strength they don't have. They're not capable of accepting they're wrong.
I just lost a lot of strength in my limbs, a lot of pain, and so I could eventually get up so I could work 2 or 3 hours, but I realized that it wasn't enough to maintain that property. 6 acres is a lot to maintain. Yeah. And I was facing this trial, which I didn't know what would happen. I thought if this went in front of an American jury, they'd throw it out.
Right.
But we were playing both sides, and so we started selling farm equipment and getting things moved up a little bit. So by the time of the trial, we weren't completely out, but we had gotten rid of like a 14-foot trailer. I wasn't using it anymore, that kind of stuff.
The old man should mumble more. Don't think there's enough old man mumbling.
I'm happy to talk about the trial because I've already spilled my guts in here.
Yeah.
In fact, in my trial, the very first exhibit was an out of context quote from my
Yeah.
I mean, I spent a page and a half describing the context, and then they took something out of context.
That sounds like what they do to us on a regular basis.
What do you mean it sounds like what you got caught trying to what are you doing? Kagami says, isn't funny how conservatives want harsher sentencing, but they bellyache over how January 6ers treated by the justice system. This is how you want our government to treat alleged criminals. Hell, you want them to be treated worse. No. When they say criminals, they don't mean criminals, they mean criminals. The dog whistle. Mumble Homestead says, concentration of these guys together, and I wonder how much their guards agree with them. I don't know. Scary thought.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to get into a little bit of we can just open up and start talking about this book, man. I really enjoyed it. It starts with a bang, I'm telling you. It talks about a lot of your fixes for the country and a lot of the problems that are going on, but it really starts with your arrest for January 6th.
I don't understand why he thinks that he is in any way qualified to solve the nation's troubles when he's just some guy. I don't get it. DM Trey with a link and 40 bits.
Courts are the last remaining guardrail that has a standard of evidentiary presentation. And you see the difference in what they say out of court versus what they say in court. Here is Trump on the 2020 election out of court.
This is a fraud. We know there was massive fraud. It was a rigged election, 100%.
Here are his lawyers in court.
This is not a fraud case. We are not alleging fraud in this lawsuit.
Here is Rudy Giuliani pleading before the Court of Seasonal Landscapers.
It's a fraud, an absolute fraud.
And what does Giuliani say about that in court?
Yes, but this is not a fraud case.
It's not a fraud case in court, where I would need evidence. The difference between in court and out of court is that in court, someone can say, prove it. Court.
Very true.
On your way to church wearing your suit, on your way to church with your wife. But the thing that struck me about your arrest is, and it really...
I like that he says you were on your way to church with your wife when you were getting arrested, as if somehow the fact that he goes to church should preclude him from ever being arrested.
It is very touching. It's very, very... You suffered strokes. You get arrested. You choose...
Again, I'm sorry that you suffered strokes, but it has nothing to do with your criminal action.
Which is 100% your right. In your Miranda rights, you have the right to remain silent. You choose to remain silent, and for that choice, you are put on solitary confinement with no clothes. They call it suicide watch, and you're...
To be clear, when they say remain silent, they mean literally for him. Your Fifth Amendment right is against self-incrimination, so it means that you can't be forced to provide testimony against yourself. When he says, I remain silent, he doesn't mean he just didn't answer, questions. He means he went nonverbal. He went completely nonverbal to any of the officers. And if you've seen us cover sovereign citizens, this is often a delay tactic to try and make everything as procedurally difficult as possible, even situations that aren't about self-incrimination, So that happened, and he wasn't, I don't know, treated the way he wanted to, so he's upsetty spaghetti. Actually, One Up says, Trump is saying that if he gets elected in 2024, he's going to pardon all J6ers. I'm sure he'll keep that promise. He probably would, because it would be like nothing for him, basically. Be a stroke of a pen. He wouldn't give a shit. And it's his second term anyway. He doesn't have to worry about re-election, so he doesn't have optics to worry about.
In a cold cell with, they don't feed you, they don't give you the correct medication either. Your wife brings all 4 medications that you have. They only give you 2. They don't give you the others. They're just screwing you.
Trump said he's going to pardon the January 6th people.
Over, your blood pressure is through the roof in a way that they would be performing life-saving measures on you normally, but the lady just does a retake and gets it a little lower and then says, move on. And you have decided to remain silent. The guards treat you throw you in a cell naked with the light on all night and not give you your medications. It seems pretty despicable to me.
The medication thing is serious regardless of who we're talking about. People have a right to be properly medicated in prison. You are a ward of the state. They have a duty of care to you. And if you are not getting your proper meds in prison, in jail, whatever, that is wrong, regardless of who it is.
You know, and it's hard to know how much of this is because, you know, I think most of them are probably just, this was at a county jail, so I think most of them are just deputies following a checklist, you know. So if a violent murderer comes in, this is what you do, you know. So they didn't know what to do with a 62-year-old guy at that point who had a stroke.
Or who was silent.
I don't think you're the first person in their 60s to go through the jail system.
What bothers me is that if you remain silent, they should be treating you neutrally, book you in, put you in a cell normally, give you your clothes. But instead, because you chose to remain silent, they put you naked in a cell with the light on.
Again, they're saying that they put him on suicide watch. I'm assuming that they assumed because he had gone nonverbal after arrest that he was feeling self-harmy. I can only give anecdotal evidence of this from my personal case, but in cases of severe trauma, or severe, like, I'm fucked, if your suicidal ideation is bad enough, you can go nonverbal. I've been there. So, like, just gonna put it out there, not talking at all might have made them genuinely think you were gonna off yourself.
I told the arresting deputy, because the FBI went and got the deputies to do the jury. Yeah. So the arresting deputy is cuffing me, and I'm telling him, look, I know I'm a political prisoner, and I'm not going to talk to anyone. Mm-hmm. At that point, I shut up. Didn't say another word for 24 hours. Yeah. But this guy forgot to tell the deputies at the jail that. Mm-hmm. So they didn't know what was going on, and I wasn't going to talk. Anyways, yeah, it escalated pretty quickly when I had all these deputies around me, and they're asking me questions, and I want to answer them, and that's when they stripped me.
All these deputies asking me questions, and I don't want to answer any of them. If they're asking about, like, the alleged crime, absolutely. You have a right to remain silent, you have a right to an attorney, etc., etc. But if they're asking, like, hey, what's your name? You legally have to give that. You don't have a right to not identify yourself. And normally when you're being brought into jail after an arrest, it's stuff like that. It's complying with, we're taking a mug shot, we're taking your fingerprints, we're identifying you, etc., etc. Those things, you know, you don't really have an option whether or not you comply with those things.
Well, that's just...
They said, like, if you don't answer our question about being suicidal, we're going to assume that you are, and how? How can you assume that?
Creamy Asteroid is an interesting person. Apparently we're McCarthy Town. Interesting. Benekagami says, since this is tangentially related to the election, AIPAC is desperate to get Jamal Bowman out of office, and they and Hillary Clinton are endorsing his primary opponent in New York District 6. Progressive Victory is holding a campaign event this weekend to help for the primary on June 25th. Anyone in the area should try to help if they can to protect a progressive representative. Plus, District 6 contains Westchester County, so imagine the content from CC being repped by a black man. That is pretty good motivation. So anyone fueled by spite, there you go. Stone Corbell says, has anyone commented on the fact that because it's faded, the flag behind them looks like a trans-American flag? Fusion? Why can't I say that word in a cheer? I don't know. Weird.
Well, they sent me to the nurse, right? I had no problem talking with nurses. It was the deputies I was not talking to. And I told the nurse, I am definitely not suicidal. She also wanted to ask me a bunch of psych questions. I said, I'm a political prisoner. I'm not going to answer psych questions.
You're not a political prisoner.
And then she wanted me to...
Your motivation for your crime was political, but your arrest was not.
Sign this tablet electronically saying that I had read the medical form. I said, I'm a political prisoner. I don't know where that signature is going. Might be a confession. Well, I know. So she shuffled around and found a piece of paper that I could read and I signed that. Yeah. But then, I told her I was not suicidal. I said these deputies are being ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And she didn't do anything.
No.
Yeah, it's really like when you read that first part, it just it's like blood curdling. I don't know how other people's reaction will be, but for me, it's just I already have so much anger against these scumbag pedophiles, and then seeing them do this to the old man.
Again, just everyone that disagrees with them is a PDF, apparently. They just get to decide that arbitrarily. They have big feelings about people, so instead of saying, you're a big meanie poopy head, they say, you're a PDF.
It's not a threat at all. It just like enrages me beyond belief, and it should
it's
enrage
heartbreaking.
anybody that reads it.
Yeah, I personally think that most of the deputies there were just blindly following checklists, but that's not a good thing. We've seen what happens in other countries when you got police blindly following checklists.
We've seen what happens when people blindly follow orders, says the man in prison for blindly following the orders of an orange narcissist.
The sort of the very heart of his book is talking about the kid is America, and if the I would like to explain that analogy.
So save the kid. What does that mean?
So that came from an analogy. I was my wife had gotten a hospital bed. It was still downstairs after so I was arrested in April. I was still downstairs, and a family friend came over and started telling me about the first Republican rally that she'd ever been to, because Republicans typically don't rally. Leftists have been having protests my whole life, tearing apart college campuses and beating police and all that stuff.
You just said leftists have been protesting my whole life, tearing apart campuses.
Because they know that if they cause trouble, the politicians will give in and give them what they want.
Sir, when you were a youth, I'm pretty sure those protests were over, like, segregation. Like, what is his view here? You were too loud about segregation, you fucks. God.
The rioters veto.
Yep, exactly. And so anyway, she came to tell me about the first rally that she went to. It was when the counting Chad's nonsense was going on in Florida. They were trying to get Al Gore to drove it across the finish line to beat Bush.
Right.
And so the Republicans in Hillsborough had a rally, and it's kind of funny because that's Hillsborough is just 15 miles west of Portland, where the Antifa people have been tearing the city apart for a year.
Antifa people been tearing the city apart. Remember Portland? How it used to be a city, but now it's just a crater in the ground created by Antifa super soldiers? R.I.P. Portland.
And so all the Republicans show up, and they're in their middle class, clothing and holding their signs and everything. In Oregon, in Portland, the Antifa wear black and masks and tear everything apart. But here we got middle class Americans, and the police say, okay, you got to stay on the sidewalks. You know what the Republicans did? They'll stay on the sidewalk. They're good Republicans, right? And
his whole story, I'm trying to narrate because I know he's hard to understand. He's the mumbliest. He's going to go into a story here about how Republicans are too orderly. Republicans always follow all the rules, and that's why they lose. Again, he says, from prison.
Anyway, so she told me this story, and then, I don't know, just a day or two later, I got to thinking about it. I thought, you can make an allegory out of this. So this part is not part of the real story, but it's the allegory, which is, okay, so the Republicans are all on the sidewalk being obedient to the government, right? Because why? Well, because we believe in rule of law, order, safe community. Right?
They believe in rule of law.
So they're being good, moral people by staying on that side. On the other side of the street, a young mom's got a toddler in hand, or a young kid in hand, and she sees someone she hasn't seen for a long time, so she excitedly starts talking. Doesn't notice the kid, but lets go of her hand and gets in the middle of the street. There's a bus coming down the street, and it's clear by the fact that it's not slowing down or moving, it's turning, it doesn't see the kid. Everybody on the sidewalk has time and possibility to get off and save the kid, but they don't. So the mom sees her kid get killed.
That's a terrible metaphor. Why? Okay, so the metaphor is Republicans are on the side of the street because they follow the law, like these fine gentlemen in prison. But a kid's in the street and they still aren't getting the kid. Laws don't preclude you from saving a child in the middle of the street. That situation doesn't make sense.
Right before our eyes. Now, tell me what you think morally of the people on the sidewalk. think they're
Also, in this case, Donald Trump was a little girl about to be hit by a bus. This is the easiest trolley problem I've ever been offered.
people? No. Well,
Freeline says, my sister lives in Portland. Good old boys come in and cause way more damage than Antifa because the police who are pulled from conservative communities let them do what they want.
I mean, probably the best you can say about them is they're cowards.
Mhm.
You know?
Yeah.
And so I basically got to thinking, how's that different than American society right now? Right? We got a bunch of Republicans who won't get off the sidewalk to save America. I think 2020 November, America was stabbed in the heart and is lying bleeding in front of us. If we don't do something, America's dead. Yep. If you can't elect your president, this is not America. I don't care how many fireworks you shoot off and hamburgers you barbecue on the 4th of July. It's not America.
But we do select our president. You just lost. I have also voted in elections where my preferred candidate lost. And then you go, that's a bummer. This is going to be a shitty 4 to 8 years. And then you move on. And you talk about things as they come up and you deal with them. But, like, you don't try and overthrow the government and try and act as though the entire election was illegitimate just because you're salty. Not good. It's not good for you. Probably contributed to the stroke, honestly.
And so, anyways, my allegory was, well, what's the moral thing to do here? Is it to obey the government and stay on the sidewalk and have a rally as opposed to saying, no, we're going to get off and do something to save America? And frankly, that's what I think of January 6th. I think ordinary Americans decided they had to do something. We're not just going to stand on the sidewalk and wave our sign and say, USA, USA, right? You know, we're going to, well, in my case, how far we want to go with those, but in my case, so I was there at the obelisk where Trump was talking for an hour, and frankly, I was bored because for an hour he told all the things that went on, and I already knew that. That's why I was there. And so, anyways, afterwards, everybody started moving towards the Capitol, and I thought the whole purpose of this, the reason I went, was to try to put some spine into the Republicans. That they would look out their window, see 1 million energized patriots waving the flag, and that they would do what was right. That's why I was there.
Again, in his mind, what is right is to not recognize the duly elected president and instead do some sort of attempt to overthrow the government.
Yeah. And so, as I got closer...
Yes, how many times do I have to say this? They are in prison! This podcast is filmed in their prison! They are in prison! This is a prison podcast!
It was just a sea of people all the way to the steps. And I didn't know until my trial that there was supposedly a quarter-mile around the Capitol that you weren't supposed to cross. So I just saw a sea of people. Yeah. But I wanted to get closer, so I went off to the right side of the steps where there were a few people. And a couple things maybe kind of discuss it. One was, I mean, there's 1 million people trying to get close to Capitol, and there's this little tiny sidewalk, and on the sides is their grass. And they have a plastic barrier with T-posts up, and it says, keep off the grass. So I walked over that side. And then I got closer, and there's bicycle racks saying that you can't go up the steps. And I'm thinking, okay, so this is the way America works right now. They violate innumerable state laws about how elections are supposed to be held and where ballots can go and where they can't. They violate all those state laws, stab America in the heart, and I can't walk on the grass and I can't go up the steps.
Not even mentioning.
The aversion to being told no as a primary feature of this man's psychology is fascinating to me. He's literally opining about how upset it was symbolically to him that he couldn't walk on the grass. There were "don't walk on the grass" signs, and to him, that was emblematic of a larger issue in America. A little telling where his mind's at all moments, I feel. Benekagami says, please pay no attention to all the destruction and violence caused by right-wingers, like the trans girl assaulted at Hopkins High School when she walked out of the boys' bathroom. Thankfully, the CCTV camera caught the whole thing, so they're treating it with seriousness it deserves for once. That's good. That's good.
In 2020 in the summer all year, leftist Democrats had been breaking all
Leftist Democrats.
sorts of laws.
Well,
in the
exactly.
cities and
Well,
not-
I mean, that comes later when they came after me, but nobody went after them.
Are they aware that plenty of people were arrested, like, during demonstrations for Black Lives Matter? Plenty of people have been.
No?
But for now, it was the politicians were fine. I mean, tell me how many people are in jail right now for killing America?
How many people are in jail right now for killing America? Your delusions are not a crime. The fact that you think a crime occurred is not justification to put people in jail. You would need to have a trial. Even to have a trial, you need to have evidence to present to a grand jury, which you don't have.
Okay? There's been 1,000 of us been through here. But as far as I know, nobody's been jailed for what happened in the 2020 election. Right? So nobody cares about that crime. But I walked on their grass and I tried to cross their police line, so I'm in here.
Again, I try to walk on the grass as if that's what he was arrested for. Here's what he was arrested for. Again, if you weren't here earlier, I did show clips of what they did. Here's him, quote-unquote, walking on the grass. Run Trip Fall, thanks for 21 months, says, prison podcast, no biggie. I've seen Blues Brothers, so... Well, there he is swinging on an officer. Woo! There you go. Man, he's not even on the grass.
Yeah. It's the sign to keep off the grass for 1 million people that they expect us to be so obedient when Democrats are burning cities down all year to get what they want.
I miss when we had cities. They're all gone now. What a shame. Toreador says, these guys in Chile should do a collab. Oh, that would be a nightmare, wouldn't it?
It really reminds me of local Republican Party I was involved with. We would complain about the right to assembly, your freedom of assembly, your First Amendment right to assemble. We were not allowed to meet for a committee meeting in person.
Right.
So they would do it on a Zoom call and complain about it.
Because of COVID.
Which is crazy to me, because if we all don't agree with it, the sheriff is a member of the Republican Party and agrees with meeting. I know the sheriff in that part of Virginia. I grew up there. My family's from there, in Williamsburg, Virginia.
Good old boys.
The sheriff is in favor of meeting in person. Screw COVID. So I know that, we're going to meet in a Zoom call, and I know that everyone disagrees with this mandate that we can't meet in person. We should be meeting in person. It's
interesting. Just because you all in that group disagree with it doesn't mean there wouldn't be disciplinary action, and doesn't mean that people flagrantly want to break the law. Like, I don't...
Republicans, or, because we're concerned.
It makes me wonder, during all of this stuff, during, like, the big, like, back in 2020, 2021, Republicans pissing and shitting about how mad they were about basic COVID restrictions. I wonder how many genuinely did recognize that, like, 6 feet and masks and vaccines and stuff are actually pretty reasonable, but their identity was so attached to Republican, like, identity politics and this anti-medical science stuff that they felt the need to go along with it to other people around them, even if they disagreed with it, as part of, like, an in-group, like, loyalty thing.
Republicans, rhinos.
Vest Demon, thanks for a 3-stream streak.
They want to...
The party apparatus.
Yeah, they want to concede ground to the left and agree to argue within the paradigm that the left chooses.
Right.
So that we're just going to shift the Overton window. We're going to argue within, we'll meet on Zoom call and we'll just complain about losing our First Amendment right. When we should actually be meeting in a First Amendment and let the police or the FBI or someone arrest us. Do it on camera.
You got your wish. You did it. You finally did something to get you arrested. Did it work? Did your plan work? Is maybe pragmatism something that you should have learned in balance with praxis? in order to effectively change things that you don't like. Remember, kids, praxis is great, but pragmatism gets you to the finish line. Have a balance.
Disobedience, just like you mentioned in your book with Dr. King, the patriotic civil disobedience that he led.
So at this point, I mean,
the comparisons they make between themselves and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Frustrating.
Guns, and they've got the force. So if they want to use a gun and force you to not meet, fine, let them do that. But why do you voluntarily give up your rights?
Exactly.
To me, this is exactly like, oh, I'm being a good Republican standing on the sidewalk while America's in the middle of the street dying.
And America as a kid is such a great analogy because, like you said in the book as well, that America is a new nation compared to the other nations. So it is like it's only been around for 250 years or so compared to the thousands of years old civilization. So it is like a kid.
I like your example. It's a perfect example of what I was trying to get Republicans to see in Oregon was that, you know, if they want to go to Salem, the Capitol, and pass all kinds of unconstitutional vote-by-mail crap, fine. Let the Democrats do that.
There are states that entirely do vote by mail before COVID. It's not a big deal.
But why are you obeying it?
Exactly.
That's my question. Are we an opposition party? Do you believe in America?
Yeah.
Why are you obeying it? I was trying to get all Republicans in the entire state from top to bottom to say, we're an opposition party. If you want us to accept the results, have an honest election. That's all I wanted.
One of the things you touch on in your book, along with the Dr. King's protests, because Dr. King was, those were pro-American protests, as you point out in your book. Those were about the equality of all men and civil disobedience and things like that.
Christianity.
Right.
Yeah. You know, it's you know, and I'd love you to
Trey says as if 250 years isn't enough time to get your shit together.
touch on some of that. But, you know, it seems like the left today, they're the moral compass. So each side has their own moral compass. We patriots, we conservatives, we freedom-loving Americans have our moral compass, which is the Constitution right here.
Where in the Constitution does it say you can try and storm the Capitol to get them to not count the electoral votes? I missed that article. Huh.
But the left, they're
It's probably somewhere in the stuff about the bicameral legislature. I don't really give a shit about that. I skipped it.
moral compass seems to be stronger than our moral compass, even though we disagree with it.
I think our case is more complicated because we have two compasses. I don't know, it's like plural. We have two compasses we have to deal with. Right. But let me address your point about the left. So you're exactly right. So in California right now, does the state of California obey federal immigration law?
No. Exactly.
No. And why not? Because
they don't agree with it.
Because they're righteous liberals. And in their heart, they have a moral compass I call...
California's the 9th biggest economy in the world. Are you, an individual, the 9th biggest economy in the world? Because I think your negotiating power might be a little bit different than the state of California.
Socialist utopia. And in socialist utopia, there's no borders. We all kumbaya. And...
Based. Benegami says, anyone see the interaction between the writer of the documentary A Failure of Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League and Gamergators? Yeah, what's his name? Trier, right? Works for... He used to be at Kotaku, but got scooped up by a bigger newspaper. Anyway, yeah, Jason Trier. That's it. When one said, suspicious you don't mention Sweet Baby Inc., the author responded, because this is about what happened and not the delusions grifters monetizing your rage put in your head. Yes, Jason's great. Jason Schreier, I would highly recommend if you're interested in journalism pertaining to the gaming industry and its abuses of employees, etc. Jason's great. He's put out some really good
And so having somebody labeled as an illegal alien is terrible. It's immoral. So therefore, they're not going to obey federal immigration law.
Yeah.
And you know what? Nobody in this country cares. Everybody's fine with it. From the media to most Republicans. I mean...
I don't think most Republicans would say that they're okay with that, so I would disagree with that statement. They just recognize that they are not in a position as an individual, or even necessarily as a coalition, to do something about it unilaterally. Like the state of California has leverage. You do not. Why you're in prison.
California, did you ever get their funding cut off from the feds when Republicans had control of all three branches? Not that I know of.
No.
So everybody's fine with them doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Northern California leans Republican. They have rich wine regions. Yep, I've seen Bottle Shock. Fun movie. You never seen Bottle Shock? Cute. It's about California wineries in like the 70s competing against French wineries. Alan Rickman's in it. Chris Pine's in it. Pretty good.
But, if we decide that, we're going to have a First Amendment assembly,
yeah,
then by golly, that's Russell.
Exactly. Yeah. And we'll bend to that. We'll actually give that up.
Right.
We don't even do it. We'll just okay, we'll meet by Zoom.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah.
We'll get them next time. It's like,
well, and here's why I think conservative or patriots inner compass is a little more complex, because we have a spiritual compass from the Bible. And remember, Jesus, when he was teaching the people, he was telling them, I'm not here to overthrow the Roman Empire. I'm here to overthrow sin in your heart, right? And that was hard for a lot of Jews to accept, right? And in fact, he had the famous saying, the Pharisees tried to trick him into getting in trouble with the government. And they said, we shouldn't pay taxes to Caesar. Of course, they already were, so it's a hypocritical question. But he said, you render to Caesar what is Caesar, and what is God to God. And so,
yep, that is the thing Jesus said that, again, kind of seems like you're not following. But okay, cool beans.
In our Christian heritage, politics is, remember, the original church was in the Roman Empire. This was when, they had tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of slaves. If you crossed them, they put you on a cross. It was a pretty terrible government. But he said, put that in one sphere and your spiritual morality in another sphere, right? Okay. So you probably could make...
H-Bird says it's frustrating hearing these people bitch about COVID restrictions. Most countries were able to partially reopen during the summer of 2020. We couldn't because these chuckleheads kept refusing to help lower case rates. Yeah, it's incredibly frustrating. I fear in the future if we get another pandemic that's deadlier, because holy shit, I think we have demonstrated pretty thoroughly our inability to function as a proper country that has a sense of community safety in mind. Chitara says, many streams ago, we pointed out that right now these guys are all in Chud voice. We gotta organize and save the country. We gotta do something. But one of the biggest problems they're gonna encounter is the differing levels of extremism, values, and competing egos that each person or group of people have on the right. This will interfere with any real attempt to do a lockstep patriot takeover that could outmaneuver the entire US federal government or military. Yeah, agreed. That's actually well said.
The comment that, or the observation that there's nothing in a spiritual compass that says anything about First Amendment meeting on Zoom or in person, right? Or wearing a mask or not, right? So that's probably true, but I think there's another compass we should be following in the political realm, and that's the Constitution. So in the political realm, so we have our spiritual compass for spiritual life, but we should have a political compass in this country of the Constitution. If it's against the First Amendment, don't do it.
Yeah. Simple.
That's simple.
Yeah.
I don't think Jesus would have agreed with or disagreed with any of the parts of the Constitution.
I don't think Jesus would have disagreed with any of the parts of the Constitution. The 3/5 compromise probably would have pissed him off. But...
The right to freedom, the right to defend yourself, like selling a cloak by a sword, the right to privacy, the right to fair trial. Jerry would agree with that.
Well, I think anybody who's familiar with history believes that that it's not an accident that some of the best political minds in the world, in the history of the world, show up in one place in America. I think it's God wanted America not just for us, but it's spread throughout the whole world.
Yeah.
Freedom and liberty for the spread.
A lot of people don't realize how fragile that birth was, and to have these great men, our founding fathers, there to basically midwife our brand new country to write a constitution. I was, back during the Arab Spring, it was Egypt. When all the people were interested, I was not as politically savvy back then. I was not as with it. I didn't understand everything that was going on, but I saw a lot of people out, and they wanted to change, and it was exciting to me to see that. And then watching it evolve as Mohammed Morsi went in, and the country what's his name, Mubarak, moved out. And then they had elections, and the Muslim Brotherhood basically just squashed everybody else because they were the only semi-organized, group. So they kind of squished everybody out, and then they created a constitution on their terms. And it really is very difficult. It showed me how much of a real miracle the American experiment was to.
To be clear, when the original Constitution was written, the only people who had rights were like landowning white men, Protestant men of Anglo-Saxon background. The idea that, like, the original version of the Constitution was this miraculous, all-inclusive document is ahistorical. Like, there are a lot of amendments to the Constitution and interpretations of that Constitution that have changed through the courts over time. The idea that the Constitution, as originally written, was this document that protected the freedoms of everyone is incorrect.
Kick out the British and have these dudes now do it the right way. And with Washington stepping down after 8 years, I mean, what did they, some saying, I forgot, I'm paraphrasing, but it's like the greatest thing he ever did was to give up power.
I think it was actually King George who we beat that said if Washington steps down, he'll be the greatest man in history.
And people like Mohammed Morsi, or even the new guy, the military leader that took over now after Morsi, what's his name, in Egypt?
Oh, that's right.
Omar Sharif? No.
Omar Sharif.
Different guy. Sorry. I see him laughing back there. So, forget and drawn a blank, but he is in power now, and it doesn't seem like he's going to leave for a while. It just, and we Americans seem to like him because he's beneficial to us, but it is very, very fragile. Yeah. And they failed. Egypt, they didn't get what they wanted. Yeah. They ended up in another form of Mubarak or whatever. But it really is a miracle what we have here, and I would love to hear more about,
So funny they're praising, like, the Constitution as they're in prison for, like, trying to overthrow the... Weird, however, no one thinks they're the bad guy. No one thinks they're the bad guy, do they? Phraseology says the American Christian theological dictatorship is going to be so much better than those non-Christian ones. Best Demon with 400 bits says, they compare themselves to Jesus and MLK. If Jesus came back, they would call Jesus a liberal commie bum. If MLK was alive, they would praise the FBI for looking into him. Oh yeah, so hypocritical. Conservatives at the time of Martin Luther King Jr. were not on board.
What you think about, I like to say that one of the most American traditions is the middle finger.
Right.
Okay?
Well, when I went home, after I left January 6th, I left pretty early because, this is kind of a funny thing, weird thing. When I left, I thought I never got past the bicycle rack because I was pushing and pulling on it, and some guy with a crowd control spray hit me from about this distance with what's essentially 10 cans of mace. Meant for crowd.
Yeah, man, you should have been trying to break into the capital of the United States. You should feel so fortunate you were met with pepper spray.
Oh, he had one of those
big
big
ones. Big ones, super sober, right in my face. And so I was, it affected me. And when I went home, the last thing I remember was that. I remember holding on to the thing, being hit by that. I thought, oh, great, I really helped America. Didn't get past the bicycle rack, didn't do nothing, went home, and that was it. Went And it wasn't until the FBI put out my wanted video, and I went to my lawyer's office, we started looking at videos, that I realized I had that.
Mr. Ducks. Oh wait, sorry, wrong one. Beachbird says he said the thing.
Totally insane.
They pushed me out and paced me.
That'll never get old to me.
That somehow somebody had put a rope or strap and pulled that thing away, and I had made a break for the stairs. Well, I was blinded and I had my hands up like this because they're spraying mace in my face, but I had another 4 cans of mace in my face. And so I was like a pinball, boing, boing, boing. I was bouncing off of guys. And every time, so when I get to my trial, well, when I got to my charge, it's basically every time I bounced off a guard, blinded and bouncing off on, it was an assault charge.
A felony assault charge, which is funny because in the summer of love, they say in 2020, when Antifa and BLM were burning cities down and assaulting officers with bricks and frozen bottles of water and this and that, they're getting charged with misdemeanor. If they do ever, very rarely do they get charged, but if they do, the charges are eventually dropped, but they're charged with like misdemeanor assault.
None of them, first of all, don't think that's true. Sure, plenty of people were charged with felonies. Secondly, you were trying to overthrow the government. You attacked the capital of the United States. You attacked the capital of the United States of America. What did you think was gonna... I'm kind of genuinely in shock that they still don't get what they did. Like, even a little bit. Or at least they're feigning ignorance. I don't know. Profane Priestess says, if you want a good teardown of the American exceptionalist mythos around our founders, listen to the 4-part series Behind the Bastards did on Thomas Jefferson. It focuses on his relationship to slavery and hypocrisy. It especially is interesting to hear about, 1, the hoops he would jump through to alleviate his cognitive dissonance, and 2, his French friends' constant attempts to get him to actually live up to what he said he believed in. Ooh. Speaking of slavery, I gotta pee. So Boxy's gonna tell you about Canción del Sur, also known as Song of the South. Be right back. That's a Spanish import. Yeah, I'm not fucking around. You think you can keep this from me, Disney? I see it! Captain Squid says they can't admit it, or it would be fatal to their self-image. Don't have an ego, not worth it. Hello, everyone. Song of the South is boring as fuck watching paint dry. I found it interesting from, like, a historical point of view in terms of looking how media at the time portrayed slavery. I actually watched this earlier today. That's why I have it here, is because I took it downstairs and I was bringing it back up, because it goes up here with my other older classic films. I say classic as in old, not classic as in good, necessarily. But yeah, I don't know. The movie itself is boring, but I find it fascinating watching what society at the time felt okay depicting as slavery to children in a Disney film. It's interesting in that sense, but yeah, the movie itself is really, really boring. Anyway, continuing. Alex Jones is having a meltdown because he'll have to shut down InfoWars again? Did they actually foreclose on him? That'd be great.
Well, in fact, so after my county jail stay Sunday night, I went to the federal courthouse the next day, And while I was in there, I asked the jailer how many Antifa. This is downtown Portland. All this
How many Antifa?
crap's been going on for a year.
The brain
I
worms.
said, how many Antifa people have you seen down there? A couple hundred? A couple dozen? 0. Nobody was ever charged. And it was a federal building and federal officers. It wasn't just the Portland police being beat up.
And the excuse they use for us supposedly trespassing is you can't protest 500 feet near Mike Pence somehow. yeah. At Lafayette Park, they were right up against the police that were near.
Y'all were literally chanting, "Hang Mike Pence! Hang Mike Pence!" And you were looking for him. Senekagami says, "I'll always be amazed at conservatives able to complain about things they caused. Argued once that all this stuff, this slow vote counting and voter intimidation was a result of shit Trump supporters did. He literally went, nuh-uh, like they don't just deny they're the bad guys, they deny that they can be any negative consequences to their actions or even make a mistake. Seriously, they never want to accept they can be conned, which is why they keep getting conned." And Rachology says, "Looking forward to the live-action remake starring Chris Pratt." Chris Pratt is going to play Brer Rabbit, and there will be blackface.
Trump and none of those people got federal charges.
Why is the audio so bad? They are recording from jail.
They assaulted way more police just in that one riot than were heard at January 6th. Yeah. Not to mention the other dozens and dozens of riots that assaulted federal officers.
Over 100 federal officers that night they stormed.
I will point this out. The movie's terrible, but from a technical standpoint, if you're interested in the matting that was done in, like, Mary Poppins or Bedknobs and Broomsticks, where they, have interactions between live-action actors and animation, this is another one that used the same techniques, and this is after the other two. So the movie itself, again, is not good. But I will say from a technical standpoint, the compositing of Remus into the animated scenes is seamless. It's well done. It's a shame it wasn't in service of a better film.
The White House.
Yeah, I love Bedknobs and Broomsticks too. I might like that better than Mary Poppins. It's not as good of a movie, but just personally as a kid, I watched that one more.
Yeah, well, in Portland there were 34 of them.
Also, they beat up Nazis in Bedknobs and Broomsticks, and that's always fun.
Just that one time alone.
In your book, you mentioned when you walk out, you ultimately get bond. You get a bond, and you walk out of the jail, and across the street is the police station. Police station. Now, what did you see when you walked out there?
So the federal building is right next to the Portland Police building where they've been rioting for a year. Now, this was during the day. It was like 5 p.m. when they let me out. Oh, and by the way, I had a nice suit that I wore to church that they couldn't find after a day. So I was wearing some rags they found out of a bag somewhere. Anyways, come out there, and the Portland Police Bureau, all the windows were covered with plywood. The federal building, the side door it came out of is not just a door. It has this big, huge metal cage around it with a big locking thing at the end, so people can go in and out without being assaulted. And in the words ACAB, which most people know what that means.
It means all cops are bastards.
Yeah, so that's spray painted everywhere.
It's an Antifa slogan.
Yeah.
It's an Antifa slogan. Do they not think that? They're in jail, and they clearly think they're unjustly in jail, so I'm kind of surprised they're not on the bandwagon on that one. But okay.
And anyway, so that was my release, and I didn't get my medicine back either.
It's amazing to read this book. I'm telling you, all this is in this book, and it's really, really a lot of information, and it's very, very helpful. What I want to know is what drove you ultimately before all this, or years ago. I mean, what drove you to conservative values? Why are you?
Well, I mentioned my dad was my first.
The conservative value of overthrowing a democratically elected government.
Sure, I'd say that's
actually, yeah, that is, yeah, that's actually right.
He's still alive. He's 88, living with my father, and I tease him that this is all his fault. Well, I mean,
yeah, they can't vote.
He's young, strong.
To my knowledge.
Top.
I guess it depends on their home. I guess it depends on their state's laws. You certainly can't while you are in prison, but some states have programs where you can after prison. Some states have it where it's just once you serve your time, you can vote again. Some have it where you have to, like, petition for it. It just depends.
Fighter pilot in the Air Defense Command, and he's fighting commies. I mean, what can you not like? Yeah. So I always loved America, and I was a very voracious reader. I mean, I just read. And so I read Solzhenitsyn when I was in high school.
Yeah.
So I knew what was going on. I knew what the communists were doing.
Yeah.
And so.
I know he just said something about communist, but he's mumbling so much I can't hear it.
In fact, that's actually one reason I joined the army is I thought it would take World War III to get the communists out of Russia.
But it would take World War III to get communists out of Russia. Oh boy.
Get them out of Eastern Europe.
Yeah. So, who knew it would take World War III to get the communists out of America?
Yes, sir.
I mean, so how was your thoughts on like Clinton and Bush and then Obama and those years?
Well, so I think I've lost any respect I had for the Bushes, frankly.
At what point did you have respect for the Bushes? That's a you problem. Agebeard says, it's important to remember they thought they'd be heroes. That Oathkeeper guy hired a documentary crew to follow him around. That seems incriminating. Hey, you want some money to come film me while I do crimes? It's a lot of confidence, though. That's calling your shot. You're filming a documentary while you're trying currently to overthrow the government? I think you've counted your chickens before they hatched if you're doing that.
Clinton, I look at that as a tragedy because, when the Iron Curtain fell, and by the way, that was a miraculous event too. I mean, it was like you woke up one morning and it was gone. It was absolutely incredible. But I thought that America wasted an opportunity to help the Russian people get familiar with freedom and free enterprise. And instead what happened is all the communist thugs over there turned into mafia thugs and stole everything. And took power. And who was
I wonder how they feel about Putin.
our president during that time? Well, it was Clinton. He was busy doing other things.
Yeah, that's for sure. There's a great book about Clinton. It's called No One Left to Lie To, The Triangulations of William Jefferson Clinton. Very good book. But one of the main points you write in your book is another through line is about these government agents essentially following orders instead of following the Constitution, just like the communists. And so if you could...
Again! The Constitution does not say you can storm the Capitol and stop them from counting electoral votes. What do they think the Constitution says?
Well,
like, they'd be better off referencing something like the Declaration of Independence, which at least is a document, while not legally binding, has sort of the ethos of the original revolution, like, when it becomes necessary, you have to throw off the shackle, blah, 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 blah. But they're not. They're referencing the Constitution, which does not let you overthrow the government.
So, like I said in the book, we lived in Germany for 4 years, and one thing I learned living there is Germans are just nice, ordinary people. I mean, they're not like British propaganda said in World War I, evil Hun. They're just nice, good people. Enjoyed Germany a lot. And one of the things that I got to thinking was, well, so how the heck does Germany, which is a Christian country, leaders in philosophy and math and everything else, how do they become, hate-filled, racial genocide and wars of aggression and turn into this horrible place?
A January 6er in prison for trying to overthrow the government for Donald Trump wonders how Germany after World War I turned to hatred and genocidal rhetoric. The irony. Holy shit, Green Guy with a $71 tip getting us halfway to costume month! That's an insane tip. Thank you, says Hannah. I've been in the Navy 19 years. Last year I was dealing with cancer. Last week found out my wife has cancer, so lucky I have the sweet social health care. Everything's paid for, getting you over halfway. Well, I'm really sorry to hear that, but I'm glad that you have, or that she has treatment options available. So I'm really sorry to hear that, but, you know, I'm glad that you're in a situation where she can get the care that she needs and deserves. That's good. Thank you for getting us halfway to Costume Month. And keep us updated. Like, our thoughts are with you. Ashley One Up says, the Constitution says I can do what I want. That is how that works. It says the pursuit of happiness. My happiness is overthrowing the government. What do you mean?
I personally think that it was because of obedience. And here's one thing that also patriots need to realize is obedience is morally agnostic. Right? If you tell me you're obedient, I don't know if you're a good person or a bad person.
Exactly.
Right? If you're obeying God's law, you're a good person. If you're obeying Mein Führer, you're not a good person. So obedience is totally agnostic. And that's why you've got to have the right...
Does he understand that Nazi Germany was not atheist or agnostic? It overtly, like, the Catholic Church was present in Nazi Germany. Like, what are you talking about? Nazis largely, by and large, were Christians. They thought that they were following both the Fuhrer and God. They didn't see them as diametrically opposed or opposed in any way. Seems to not get that. That's interesting.
Compass. So I think what happened to the German people is that Hitler was elected, right? I mean, he became chancellor first. He won an election.
People get this wrong. So Hitler was appointed chancellor by the president, or whatever the name of the head of state of the Weimar Republic was. I don't remember if it was president or prime minister or what it was. Either way, the head appointed Hitler to try and appease the more extremist elements, because they were like, well, if we put him in as, you know, chancellor under me, then they'll have a say in government, and they'll be fine. And then Hitler, once the guy above him died, decided, hey, I'm just gonna be everything now. I'm no longer the chancellor. I'm the Fuhrer, and I'm in charge of everything. So no, he wasn't really elected. The Nazi Party was elected to a plurality of the Weimar Republic's parliament, but no, Hitler didn't win an election in that way.
And so in theory, he had the legitimacy of the people, and then he worked his way into...
I think the Nazis had roughly 30-something% of the parliament at the time.
Führer, and made all the military take close to him and not to the country. And so you could say that, you know, he started off fooling the German people into thinking that he was a legitimate person to obey. But once he started doing the evil stuff that he started doing, people should have said, wait a minute, I can't obey that. And so I see Americans in the same place, frankly. You know, there were stories about during COVID lockdown, mom got tired of her little kids being locked up, so she took them to a park, no one else there. The police come and tell her to get out of there, they're going to arrest her.
Yeah, because that's not how this works. If you let one person come, then other people are going to want to come and be like, well, she can stay, and then all of a sudden no one's following the directives. Yep.
Sickening. Okay?
You are not the center of the universe seems to be a big problem with these people.
Well, I'm sorry, but when I hear something like that, I see police officers going down that road. Yeah.
Literally, my kid not being allowed to play in a park during COVID lockdowns is equivalent to Nazi Germany. Interesting take. H-Baird says, having an internal mental model of the world that's internally self-consistent and comports with reality as much as possible is a liberal value. These people believe in magic. Many believe that being Christian means they're physically incapable of being the bad guy. They also believe that thinking you're in the right means that it isn't sedition. Best Demon with 200 bits says, the Nazis had God is with us on their belt buckles. They were overwhelmingly Christian and alt-right. I mean, alt-right just basically means Nazi anyway, so...
Yeah, absolutely.
Nazis had 33.1 of the seats during the last election allowed.
You know, and one of the things I heard on the campaign trail in Oregon when people used the line, kind of throw a line, you know, we support the police, we support the thin blue line. Okay, that is true, but I do not support a police state, right? That is not conservative.
That's interesting. I agree with thin blue line, but I don't support a police state is a confusing statement to me.
It's not patriotic.
Yeah.
So,
We support police who support their oath to the Constitution,
exactly.
not government agents that blindly follow order. So one of the things that, the way that really resonated with me, because
Hydrate.
when I was a kid, I wanted to join the military, and then I saw what was happening in Iraq, and that turned me off of the American military, that they weren't serving American interests, that they were...
They just want a police state that serves them. They wouldn't consider it a police state. They would consider it law and order.
like a attack dog, a police force of the world type thing, instead of defending America itself. And so I stopped wanting to be in the military, and then I wanted to be a lawyer. And then I saw how corrupt the legal system is, and I didn't want to be a lawyer. And then, so I ended up going to school also for electrical engineering.
So you decided to become a J6.
Well, yeah, that's coming up, yeah. So I want to be an electrical engineer and create something. I thought if I create a power source that could solve nuclear fusion, that would essentially...
He thought he was going to solve nuclear fusion? Oh boy. Mossloth says, thin blue line rhetoric confuses me. Like, of course we all understand that police officers have to make split-second decisions. We just think they need to be held accountable, dude. But people take that as an attack on, like, their cousin or something who's a cop. And they're like, no, but he's a good guy, though, so he can do whatever.
Help free people out of all conflict. And then I came across Robert Oppenheimer's speech after the Manhattan Project, where if you read between the lines of what he's saying, he's talking about the god Vishnu, which is the government, threatening him, the prince, to do his duty, and then that's where you get the famous line that he says. But so
I thought he got that famous line from reading a book while he was fucking his girlfriend.
I want to end up like Oppenheimer.
Oppenheimer movie joke.
You know, tearing up and crying in front of the world for what the destruction I had just given to the powers of the government. Like, he armed the worst people in the world with the most terrible bomb ever against his will. And so I didn't want to go down that road. And so, I thought, well, okay, if we can change the political landscape and bring America back to its righteous founding, then it would deserve that power. But as of now, it doesn't. So I don't want to go down that road, and I ended up becoming a political activist for that reason, and to try to do something about the corruption, stand in the way of it. That was my motivation, actually, to go to J6, really. Or not to go to J6, but to start my political activism. J6 specifically was to go see Trump, but
let's replay that.
I ended up becoming a political activist for that reason, and to try to do something about the corruption, stand in the way of it. That was my motivation, actually, to go to J6, really.
That was my motivation to go to J6.
Or not to go to J6, but to start my political activism. J6 specifically was to go see Trump.
Oh, no. I wasn't I didn't go there planning anything. I just wanted to go see Trump. Oh. That's an accidental slip. I was going to try and stop corruption. Oh no, I mean I was just going to see Trump. What? It was spur of the moment. This wasn't premeditated. What are you talking about? Where's my lawyer?
But
H-Bird says if he wants to be like Oppenheimer, he needs to spend an inordinately long time nude and make it as awkward as possible.
So, I was wondering, what internal changes can stop a Marxist regime? Because it seems like from all the Marxist regimes, like whether it's the Nazis, which are National Socialists, or
they did the meme,
or it's
famously the Nazis loved socialism and communism for sure.
Russians or Pol Pot in Cambodia and Khmer Rouge, or the Vietnamese. In all these instances, it takes outside intervention. It seems like to stop them. So there's a way to internally defeat the Marxist regime.
I don't think so, because I don't think the solution is a constitutional convention. I don't think it's a conservative Supreme Court. I don't think it's a super politician to become president.
Right.
I think the solution is for a majority. There's probably 100 million Americans who understand what's going on.
Sorry, Ashley, I must have. Ashley said, if we need a quick cleanse, also I think This is what Hannah will do when America collapses. Let's see. That's loud.
The librarians didn't. They knew what information people were looking for. So, with whatever resources were available, they started making manuals. With accurate citations. First aid and hygiene, water purification, gardening, foraging and herbalism, trapping and fishing, home heating. Then, as time passed, tool library, classes, notice board, seed cache, and sometimes hot tea. It became a real local hub for the community, and people usually respected the space, at least more than most buildings. Anne had a particularly green thumb, so she started growing a bunch of mango seedlings early, so they will be sooner ready to sprout and be part of a survival garden starter packs, which also include seedlings or seeds for berry bushes, herbs including medicinal, cooking, and pollinator attractors, ground cover like strawberries and clover, and flowers that can return nitrogen to the soil. She gave them away to anyone, but also planted them when going on book scavenging trips. So if you need information, just...
My trips would be scavenging DVDs from the ruins. Wrong link. Try again. Let's see. Fennikagami says, if you said they want a police state, they would respond, how is that different than what you leftists want? They legit don't understand that generally, even if a leftist might take authoritarian measures to keep conservatives from hurting people, we would let them be as free, happy, taken care of, and alive as people while keeping them from hurting people. Conservatives will not extend such courtesy to us. That's the difference. Rachology says, fun fact, the outside force that brought down the, Khmer Rogue was military intervention by, drumroll, Communist Vietnam! Here's the right link.
Collapsed. I didn't know what to do with myself. I had a huge collection of physical media and a burner, so I started making copies of movies and albums for anyone who wanted it.
Yo, did they make a sequel to The Mask?
Yes. And I'm going to put it in here, but I'm also going to include The Truman Show and Liar Liar. Please check those out. I was also in charge of the programming for movie night. If you came early, I would talk a bit about how they made the movie and just any trivia that I could remember. Yeah, I found a lot of support from the community. People bring me blank CDs and DVDs and even pieces of media they find.
Was Shrek the Halls on your wanted list?
You, my dear, are an angel. I cannot thank you.
Sold. Unironically, that sounds lovely, except for the whole society ending thing. If the government collapses, my first thing will be movie nights, because international copyright law won't stop me anymore. Disney.
Okay.
Unironically, if there were no copyright laws, I'd just sit and watch movies with you guys all day, and that would be the show. We'd just hang out and watch movies, and I'd talk about the trivia. But alas, because of stupid copyright laws, I can't enjoy movies like Chairman of the Board with you. Captain Squid says, but that's when the Disney paratroopers show up. I can take them.
Need to do what they taught me when I was in the Army in the 1980s, and that is if someone gives you an unconstitutional order, you say, I do not do that. Okay. People, like you read Solzhenitsyn and you read about what happened to 60 million Russians tortured or worked to death in Siberia, right? And people will say, well, Stalin did that. No, Stalin did not.
Sounds good, Trey.
Stalin gave orders, and politicians, and policemen, trained engineers, and tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people said, yes, sir, and killed 60 million people. Yep. Same thing with the Germans. Hitler did not do all that. People said, Sieg Heil, and did what he said. Right? So
Again,
the solution is...
the irony of what are effectively Trump's brown shirts, fear-mongering about fear-mongering about communism, or in this case, Nazism, is hilarious to me.
None of the...
Ironic.
big politician stuff is
like rain
solutions for every American
on Sedition Day.
to start acting like they believe in the Constitution. And I don't care if the police come in and throw me in jail, or they arrest me, or they take away my...
Oh, that's really convenient that you don't care, because they did. Your fault. Chitara says, I'm very biased here, but these men believing that they're fighting a similar fight to the African-American civil rights movement makes my blood boil, and alone would make me dismiss any sort of justification they're trying to make. Hell, my own great-grandmother walked down Woodward with MLK in '63. Oh yeah, they're so radicalized and delusional, I don't know if there's any way you could ever walk them back from this. Like, their entire sense of self is now so deep into this, and they so effectively ruined their lives, I don't know how you would ever psychologically recover from this. I don't know how you would ever be able to look back and go, oh my god, I'm wrong and I fucked up.
Property or whatever. You may have to pay a price, but if you're an American, you should have the guts to do it.
When you talk about Dr. King in your book, and the civil disobedience that he led, that the movement of sitting at the
civil disobedience in working towards rights for African Americans, the thing that you were shit talking half of this runtime so far. Burning cities to the ground. MH Dark Beast with a 5-stream streak says, you see this upsetty spaghetti Republican? Let's see. See how upsetty spaghetti they are.
I've sat here for 2 hours, probably going to be 3 or 4, and listen to these smoke screens that my friends on the other side of the aisle are saying. They bring up the trial of Donald Trump, convicted felon. Really? By a judge that is a known anti-Trumper?
There was a jury.
You bring out Mr. Nadler, I've got the floor. If you're going to interrupt, Mr. Chairman, call him down when he interrupts. It's my time, and I'll let you respond, but I'm tired of this. You talk over everybody. It's so rude of you. I've sat here for 2 hours.
So rude of you. You're literally wrong. Don't lie then.
At the counters, in the segregated diners, the freedom rides, there's all sorts of unconstitutional rules that they were challenging, and that's why earlier, and I do firmly believe that one of the most American traditions is the middle finger. Well, it is telling unconstitutional laws that we're not going to do that.
I feel like if the primary lens through which you view things like the American Revolution or the civil rights movement is giving the middle finger, then you have missed a lot of the story of both of those two things. If your primary takeaway from either of those events is, hell yeah, give people the middle finger, and that's your main takeaway, you have fucked up. Your media and historical literacy is dog shit. Don't get me wrong, there's certainly an element of that punk, fuck you, I won't do what you tell me, I know, but that's not like the primary driving thing. It's not the only thing. There's an ethos backing that fuck you. It's not just an obstinance, it's an obstinance in the face of, like, grievous harm, which you did not have.
And we're going to think on our own, and we're going to have that.
Exactly right, and I didn't finish this thought earlier, because I had it when you mentioned it earlier, was that that's what January 6th was to me, was American people saying, I know what I was saying, you just stab my country, and I'm crossing your stupid police line to wave the flag on the steps.
First of all, we saw the video. He's lying. But even if that was the case, isn't that the stupidest thing to go to prison for ever? They're not letting us on the steps to wave a flag, so I'm gonna beat the cops up. Not worth it. Not a good reason to beat up a cop. Benikagami says, man, it really is Sprite politics for these people all the way down, isn't it? Rather, spite politics. Sprite politics would be lemon-limey and refreshing. Do they still make Sprite? They do. Sierra Mist is what they stopped making.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which you have every right to do, really.
And there's nothing more rock and roll than that.
Well, I felt like
You guys seem very rock and roll.
I felt like when I went home, I thought...
Very specifically, Johnny Cash, when he went to prison to
I just witnessed the Boston Tea Party.
It almost works. He's country, but you get it.
I was proud as heck.
Yeah. Boston Tea Party.
And then I get home and I hear leftists calling it an insurrection, and I hear conservatives calling it a terrible riot, and I just turned the crap off because I was so mad.
Which is in the dichotomy of what the Democrats did in the summer and all year in 2020 and even before, burning cities down and rioting everywhere, and the Republicans and the Democrats making excuses for the.
At what point were Republicans defending any of the demonstrators during the BLM stuff? What are you talking about?
Oh, well, they're just, it's the voice of the unheard. I heard over 1,000 times in 2020 that riot was the voice.
And you have Democrat leaders encouraging
them, actively encouraging them, and then the Republicans just kind of, oh, well, they're referring to it as unrest or a protest. No, it's a riot. It's a riot. It's not unrest. It's not a protest. You live in Oregon. Portland was that one of them, Seattle and Portland both had an autonomous zone that Antifa and BLM blocked off, kicked out the police precinct, and took over land, which is what, an insurrection. Isn't that an insurrection?
Well,
Sir, you broke into the Capitol.
And
I don't
they
think
just
whataboutism's gonna help you.
allow it, and you don't even hear about it. I mean,
No, Portland.
Oh, I heard about
we
that.
moved there in 1989. It was a beautiful city, and now to this day, it's run down, chock full of street people, and
Street people.
face.
What an asshole.
People don't want to be there anymore.
Who said the riot is the language of the unheard? Martin Luther King Jr. Wait a minute, but he was making fun of that line and said he liked Martin Luther King Jr. It's almost like he's lying or using Martin Luther King Jr. rhetorically to make his crimes seem legitimate by comparing them to a civil rights leader. The civil rights leader as far as most of America is concerned.
Probably it's on a downward slope. Who knows? I have a friend who helped me. We worked together in politics in Oregon. Lost 4 businesses when they did this COVID shutdown. He had 3 little coffee shops and a coffee grinding business. And the city just, we're closing everything down. So he lost his life's work. He was in his
Starbucks have to stay open.
Yeah, the big guys stayed open because they've got corporate money from the whole country.
2 points. One is these big stores, Walmart's, Costco's, they stayed open. And if this is what bothers me about this COVID mandates, if the logic is that we have to shut everything down because if everyone gets near each other, they're going to get COVID, and I need to go get eggs, you need to get tires, and you need to get flowers for your wife, wouldn't it make more sense that you go to a florist, you go to get tires at a tire place, and I go get eggs at a grocery store?
No, because for one thing, companies like Walmart upped doing grocery delivery, and you could literally just show up and they'd load groceries into the car for you. Also, Walmarts are a lot bigger, and therefore you can have a lot more space between people than you could at a local place. I'm not ignoring, I understand that a lot of people who have small businesses got fucked over during COVID, but like, public health is a concern, and you have to take it into consideration. People also got a lot of PPP loans during that time, so I don't really want to hear that much bitching about this, if I'm being honest.
So we're not interacting, but with their logic, we all go to Walmart to get all different things, and we're all interacting. So even their logic doesn't matter. But one thing I want to touch on with this downtown Portland, I've heard stories about Portland and Seattle, and
I've heard stories. I've heard tales tell. Oh, I gotta use the bathroom again. While I'm gone, Chair will tell you about Camp Nowhere with Christopher Lloyd. Be right back. Oh, Captain Squid says, yeah, these guys doing violence during the George Floyd protests, like that guy who was shot up the police station who was a right-winger, or that guy who murdered a security guard who was a right-winger, or those guys who got arrested for starting a riot who were right-wingers. Right-wing provocateurs. My least favorite genre. Where does Cher keep finding these terrible films? Hey, how dare you? Cher's offended, and I'm offended on Cher's behalf. I like Camp Nowhere. One of the better kids' camp movies. It's no heavyweights, but it's pretty good. God damn it.
On the riots, the 1,000 riots in 2020, the Democrat riot.
1,000 riots.
Because that's just called how it is.
Makes it sound awesome. The summer of 1,000 riots.
That Antifa was leading. That if you put a sign up saying black owned or BLM support or Antifa support or whatever, they won't break your store. Well, but if you don't, they will. And what it reflected to me is those German Nazi riots against the Jewish businesses.
Crystal knocked? Bravo Needs Bacon says, not to be a jerky jerk, but these clowns should not be allowed to be doing this podcast because they're traitors. At least they won't be able to vote for their cult leader. Yeah.
Where if you said, you know...
Ernest Goes to Camp is overrated.
Aryan.
The only good Ernest movies in this order are Ernest Scared Stupid and Ernest Saves Christmas. End of list.
Owned on your window, they wouldn't bust your store up. So it seems a lot of parallels between the Nazi regime and the BLM and Antifa.
The fuck are they talking about? I tried to look that up, by the way, in relation to Crystal Knocked, and I couldn't find anything, so I don't know if that's a thing they're actually pulling from or if they just made that up.
But some of them still got broken. And that goes right into my next question, actually. So these, the socialists, the communists, and the fascists, they all seem to fit the same mold. So they're characterized by...
Don't let them hear you say that.
Having one-party rule.
That's going to start a fight.
A police state, and then an absolute ruler who's actually a fool that starts wars and tries to strong-arm other nations and then gets his country ruined. So I'm wondering about, is there an actual difference?
Are they aware that Trump tries to strong-arm other countries? That's literally his whole MO, is trying to be like strongman asshole guy.
Between socialists, communists, and fascists.
No,
They would mark Jewish houses and stores, not the other way around? Right.
I've been reading a book, I think it's called 5,000 Year Leap, and this left-right political line is, comes from Europe, has no application to America. Yes. It makes more sense to have like anarchy on one side and totalitarian on the other side.
Yes.
And Americans should be with the Constitution, with as a republic and democracy and voting and so forth, more towards the lack of government side. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then you get all the different flavors of communist social. They're all towards totalitarian.
Yes.
They're all the same.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it seems to be communist or fascist. It's authoritarian government. Right. It's the same thing. It doesn't matter.
And so when they call themselves anti-fascist and then behave like fascists, what are they?
Punching Nazis is fascist. Yes, Ash, they are in prison.
What they call themselves or what they're behaving as?
Well, they don't even know what the name of the Nazi party is. National Socialists. Workers of Germany.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Night of Long Knives.
Absolutely.
So they pervert everything. And I love to ask J6ers on this podcast, just straight up, because the media loves to characterize us and call us all sorts of names. Mr. Christensen, I'll ask you just straight up, are you a fascist?
Famously, fascists are very open and self-aware about their own beliefs and behaviors and how they exist within the context of the society they live within.
No, I would, I think they're possibly... Labels are hard these days because I think
Labels are hard these days, he asks as he's asked if he's a fascist. Oh boy, that was a softball question and you already answered wrong.
It's not a great label because it comes from parliaments in Europe, right? But I like the word patriot.
Patriot. Where's patriot on the political compass?
American Constitution.
By the way, this is one of the things that kills me about this town.
I love that they just say American Constitution like there's one interpretation of the American Constitution for all time, and the interpretations have never changed and never vary from person to person or court to court. Incredible.
Trial had a 60-person jury pool, and every single one of them comes up and says something to the effect, because they asked about, can you be impartial about January 6th? And almost all of them answer something to this effect. It was so sad.
Oh god, he does look a little bit like Chris Claremont, doesn't he?
To see how Americans would obey this peaceful transfer.
Yeah, like one of the key things about fascism as written in fascism is an obsession with patriotism, nationalism, jingoism. Like, that's a key element of fascism.
And I realized that in order to believe that nonsense, you have to believe that 100 million American-loving, Constitution-loving patriots, overnight, maybe through Orange Man bad magic, turned into tyrannical Nazi, don't believe in election. Or...
Not overnight. Took a while. Y'all got primed with propaganda for like 20 years by Fox News and Sean Hannity, etc.
Or you could believe that they think there were shenanigans, right? It seems like that's easier to believe. But almost everyone on that jury pool, looked at us as tyrannical Nazis wanting to steal power from a peaceful election.
Yeah, you're talking about...
That's what you did. I don't really care how you feel about it. That is objectively what you were doing, was trying to overthrow an election through force and intimidation.
Occam's razor.
Which is the least constitutional thing you could do.
Which is the simplest explanation is usually the truest one. Which you just, if you apply it for a second.
True, bravo.
None of the arguments of the left hold water ever at all.
And didn't the Democrats riot during 2017 transfer of power during the inauguration of Donald J. Trump?
What are you talking about, man?
They were burning down cities.
I don't even know what he's referencing.
They still claim he stole the election to this day.
Jamie Raskin, Congressman Jamie Raskin, was the one congressman who stood up in January during the certification of the election and objected to the election of Donald J. Trump. And he's the same one on the J6 committee saying that we're election deniers and all this, but you tried it, and you just couldn't convince a senator to go with you. But one of the things that you say is jury pool in D.C., one of the things that really struck me about one of my friends posted online, or I saw a post online about, so it was two pictures. One was D.C. in the summer of 2020, and it was all ablaze. There was fires everywhere, okay? And the other one was D.C. on the night of January 6th, which it was completely, looked like a regular city, dark, right?
Yeah, by that point they had kicked you out of the Capitol already, after you had tried to overthrow the election through violence. But picture, fire! No fire in picture! Why me in jail? No fire! Why jail? We're literally talking about reasoning on the level of Facebook memes. They are using Facebook memes as evidence they shouldn't be in prison.
And she said that, she received so many phone calls on the night of January 6th from her friends and family all around the country asking if she was okay at her house, okay? She received 0 phone calls from friends and family around the country asking if she was safe when the entire city was burning in the summer of 2020. So it's like really weird that just because an event happened at a particular place, but the city was completely peaceful other than that incident.
It was peaceful other than that incident, the one you're in prison for? So you're agreeing it wasn't peaceful.
But when the city is completely burning, nobody cares, and the media is just nowhere to be found.
Donald Trump was absolutely right when he said the media is the enemy of the people, for that reason.
I had forgotten that, but when I was walking through the subway spot to Donald Trump's speech, I went through blocks of buildings that were boarded up and everything. It was very stuff.
And we actually obeyed the curfew.
Yeah.
The big bad insurrectionists went back to their hotels and obeyed the curfew. Like, what? Wow, we are terrible insurrectionists. I'm telling
I agree.
you. It is amazing. And I always point this out. 4 American citizens were killed on January 6th.
Ashley Babbitt got shot. One of them was trampled by other January 6ers, so don't know who you're blaming for that other than your friends. 2 of them were health issues. Again, don't know who you're blaming for that.
Babbitt, everyone knows about, was shot. Roseanne Boylan, Benjamin Phillips, and Kevin
Boylan was trampled.
Greason. How many officers were killed on January 6th by protesters? A big goose egg, 0.
One died a few days later after getting hit in the head with a fire hydrant, I believe, by one of them. So no, there's at least one fatality in terms of the police. H. Baird says, we should send them a copy of Paris is Burning and tell them to watch it because it'll help their case.
God,
I didn't get that. I haven't seen Paris is Burning, unfortunately.
With the family of Brian Sicknick, Officer Brian Sicknick, our condolences.
I want to read that, Ashley, but I can't because I'll actually activate people's things, and I don't want to get in trouble.
Go out to him, but the medical examiner said he died of, confirmed that he died of natural causes. Overnight, he had a stroke, had nothing to do with January 6th, but...
So wait, the 2 people that had strokes on your side you're claiming are victims, but the cop who had a stroke after getting hit in the head with a fire hydrant by a January 6er, that doesn't count? That's interesting.
We're still blamed for that. We're blamed for Billy Evans, who was killed by a BLM supporter several months later. He ran the barrier in like March or April, and we're blamed for Billy Evans. The BLM supporter gets out and runs him over with a car and stabs other officers. We're with the death.
No idea what he's talking about on that one.
Toll of the death toll of January 6 officers is up to like 13
Gotcha, H-Bear.
or 15, I don't know, 20. I don't know what number they're going to throw at us, but 0. 0 was the real number.
Yeah, and if most likely, if anything from J6 had anything to do with Brian Sicknick's death, it would have been the fact that he inhaled a bunch of your gas that you were launching on us.
Well, my wife thinks that I had that stroke just a week after I got back. My wife thinks it was the exposure to 14 Canton Lakes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was natural causes. He was hit really hard in the head, so naturally he died.
I have a biological tendency towards that on my mom's side. Usually it didn't show up till like the 70s.
Yeah, I mean, we should definitely look into that if they want to make all these claims with Brian Sicknick and all these other things. I mean, we should definitely look into that. It's just amazing, the double standard and it is crazy. It really, you've got Enrique Tarrio and the Proud Boys. Enrique Tarrio was serving a 22-year prison sentence. He wasn't even in D.C.
Right, he was one of the organizers. Yep. If you organize the overthrowing of an election, even if you aren't there, you're part of the conspiracy, and I believe that's what he was charged with.
On January 6th, there's no communications with him and his Proud Boy friend with
Incorrect.
With the other Proud Boys, Ethan Nordine, 18 years for shaking a fence. Joe Biggs, 17 years. Zachary Real, 15 years, and Dominic Pizzola, 10 years. There is no evidence that they orchestrated, were involved in, or interested in an insurrection at all. They are 100% innocent of those charges. We've lived with them. We know.
To be clear, again, you guys know that I spend, for my job, time in these forums where these people are. Up to January 6th for weeks they were planning this. I saw it. I talked about it on stream. I showed messages where they were planning this. It still disgusts me that they weren't better prepared at the Capitol because people like we were screaming like, "Hey, they're openly online talking about what they're gonna do," and they just weren't prepared regardless. So the idea that this was like some whoopsie doodle, just we all make mistakes in the heat of passion, Jimbo. Like, no. This was premeditated. I fucking saw it. God damn. Sorry, it just frustrates me being gaslit. Like, it annoys me people lying to your face. Chitara says, some of those message boards are probably still up. Almost certainly.
That they are friends of ours. We've been through this. But, Antifa and BLM runs roughshod over the whole
Oh, there's that whataboutism again.
Country, and they're given a complete pass.
Well, one of the things I point out in the Constitutional Compass, which has 4 points, the fourth one is that laws are equally applied. Right? And I'm sorry, but you cannot call this is, so I was thinking, I haven't had my sentencing hearing yet, right? But I think I have three levels I could go. One level is I plead for mercy, say Orange Man bad, and Biden's the best president ever.
Literally, you would just have to show any remorse for your crime, which you clearly don't have, so that's out.
The other one is I just say I have nothing to say to you people, which is kind of
I'm sure that'll go great.
where I'm at right now. The fourth one is take your communist kangaroo court and shove it.
Do that one, yes, absolutely. To the judge that is sentencing you, please tell them to their face that this is a kangaroo court and they're a communist. Please do this, I am begging you.
Because that's what it is. It's a communist kangaroo court because it's not. If it was American justice, then there would be hundreds of BLM people in prison.
No true Scotsman?
In Portland before they ever thought of talking to me. So,
And January 6th never would have happened if they were being, if the law was being fairly applied and the Constitution was being followed, because we got, we just went over innumerable constitutional. They took this Constitution and they ripped it up in 2020.
No, they didn't.
Under the guise of COVID.
Well,
okay?
why didn't anybody? I mean, other countries, especially in Africa, always have riots and fights after elections, and why? Because they have crooked elections.
You're the problem! You fell for propaganda!
Well, up until 2020, maybe there were shenanigans. I'm sure there were shenanigans earlier, but up until 2020, at least you had some belief that it was an honest election. Right? But by 2020, everybody plainly saw it was a joke. It was a crooked election. That's why people protested. I'm a constitutionalist. We believe in the voice of the people. If you hold an honest election that I can see, right, you can hold those kind of elections.
And if you're not keeping out the poll watchers.
Yeah, I can't complain if I get to watch how it's all done.
Right.
And I see one person show up and drop one ballot. None of this ballot box stuff crap, right? And you hold an honest election and you say, hey, we're going communist, I'll say, fine, let's go.
I kind of doubt that. Sir, you couldn't handle Joe Biden being elected. You think you could handle an actual communist being elected? Good God.
I'm not going to believe
His brain broke at the most milquetoast Democrat who's been in government for 50 years. And you think you'd be like, oh, we voted for an actual communist? That's fine. I think he's lying to himself on that one. I think he really believes, like, he's fair. Things just aren't fair to him. No, he's wrong.
And they called an honest election.
It's important to note that they stole the election with multiple different methods.
Yeah.
So all the different efforts that Giuliani and his team uncovered, they...
Hey, remember how Giuliani in court literally said there wasn't fraud because they had no evidence of it, and he knew he would get in trouble if he lied in court? I remember.
Found that about 1.2 million votes were cast or counted under provisions not approved by state legislatures, whether that's the mail-in ballots, the ballot harvesting ballots, all that together was about 1.2 million. And then you had the FBI and the CIA directly interfering in the election by censoring the Hunter Biden laptop story.
Yeah, Giuliani did get in trouble still. I don't remember what specific action did, but he is in trouble.
In Facebook, which Mark Zuckerberg said on Joe Rogan's podcast. And then you had the Twitter files, which revealed that the FBI was directly working at Twitter to censor the New York Post story about the Hunter Biden laptop. And then you had the CIA, Mr. Anthony Blinken, who's now given a position of power, who was an active CIA agent at that time, who orchestrated a letter that said, the Hunter Biden laptop has all the hallmarks of a Russian disinformation operation. Well, those hallmarks have never been explained or shown, and they can't because it's not true.
I mean, the laptop is still literally never materialized, so that's a pretty big one. Steve with the Q says, PSA, do not confuse No True Scotsman with Nae True Scotsman.
And then the excuse that the media ran with was, it's signed by 51 former intelligence officials, so it's just random citizens talking. It's not the government interfering in the election. Well, the letter itself was organized by an active CIA agent, and that person was actively working for the government, so the government, the CIA, members of the government, interfered in the election, and so did the FBI. Interfered in the election. Active members, not former. Okay, so that is, and there's a conflict of interest of the highest order for the FBI to interfere in the election and then turn around and try to be the investigative body against the people who try to stop their crime, which is us.
I would actually even back up a little bit and say, the purpose of an election is not so that you and your friends can learn you won. Now, maybe
correct.
We're talking homecoming queen. Maybe that's the purpose. But a political election is so that your enemies can learn that you won. Right? Because you expect them to turn over their life, their money. I mean, why am I sitting in orange? Because they have power.
Yeah, power does play into it, but also you're wrong. So, that doesn't help.
Expect me to turn power over to them. How about giving me an honest election so I believe it? Right.
There was an honest election. You're delusional.
So I don't even care if everybody in Washington, D.C., including my entire jury, thinks that the election was fine and I'm an idiot because I believe it was stolen.
I don't think idiot encapsulates it. That feels more like an insult. I think you're delusional and were taken in by a lot of really heightened rhetoric. So it's unfortunate that it ended up ruining your life, but nonetheless, they'll make decisions.
I don't care what they think. I'm their political enemy. They should care what I think. Yeah. They should care that 100 million Americans don't believe it. Yeah. Because if we're not doing elections anymore, we're going back to 5,000 years of human history, which is what? We have wars and we murder each other for political power.
Literally, you won't believe that the elections are honest no matter what, so there's nothing other people can do. If you want to become a violent asshole and go to prison over it, that's your business.
Yeah, that's how we did it for 5,000 years, before America. Yeah.
Also, he said 5,000 years. I'm assuming he's a young Earth creationist.
So if we're throwing that away, then that's what we're going back to.
Yeah, it's, to your point, for an example, what really bothers me, and just one example, is the kicking the poll watchers out in Fulton County and on camera then pulling 4 boxes of ballots out from underneath the table and counting them. And, look, if that was completely legitimate and hey, it's just a big misunderstanding.
It was legitimate. That's been investigated thoroughly.
It's just, those are real ballots. We were just putting them there and whatever. Then, like you said, then do a full forensic audit on those to give the other side. So we agree with you that it's you can't just tell us, oh, that's fine, nothing to see here. It's totally cool, If we don't believe it, then we don't believe it.
Right, but the problem is a ton of evidence has already been shown to you and you don't. So that's not true. You don't believe it, you don't believe it. There's nothing anyone can do when you're not being persuaded by the rhetoric of evidence.
It's not about it's about the appearance.
Didn't they do an audit in Arizona and found nothing? They did audits multiple places, but there was a big one in Arizona that was done by a company called Cyber Ninjas that were Republicans, that were MAGA people, that was funded by MAGA people, and they still didn't find anything. Radiology says they'll find those Chinese bamboo fibers one day. Now, for those who don't remember, one of the claims was, we're gonna find bamboo fibers, and that'll prove that these are from China. Because, they're ignorant, and their idea of other countries comes from cartoons.
Of impropriety, even if there was none. If you're saying there was none, prove it. And you should have no problem proving it. Because that looked...
You're the one with the burden of proof. You're saying... You're the one making the exceptional claim that the election was stolen. So you need to demonstrate that. That's how burden of proof works.
Really weird.
Didn't they find more votes for Biden in Arizona? Yep.
Weird to me. You're supposed to have the poll watchers there, first of all. And, and then you're counting these ballots repeatedly. And it's just really weird. And, so like your point, the political enemy should be agreeing, everything should be transparent. No pizza boxes and blocking off the windows so that the poll watchers can't see them. Phil, what's it up? Was that Detroit or Philadelphia? I mean, all these cities were doing crazy stuff.
Yeah, and it's just a coincidence that it was Democrat counties with big cities and swing states that this all.
Yeah, so
Pennsylvania, all of us 400. Trump's ahead the entire time, and then they're like, "Oh crap, Trump's going to win Pennsylvania." Magical 400,000 vote spike in the middle of the night.
That was literally them adding the votes from mail-in voting. We knew this was going to happen. Weeks up to the election, we were told this was going to happen because of the procedures that were put in place by Republicans that disallowed from counting mail-in ballots until after the polls already closed. So that is the fault of Republicans. Those votes are legitimate. I'm sorry you don't like them, but it's the reality of the situation.
Never been explained.
And you can trust me, because I'm on the internet instead of on the internet and in prison.
So it reminds me of one phrase from the Declaration of Independence all the time. This thing comes up to my mind all the time, is that just government must derive its powers from the consent of the governed. And Joe Biden and his cronies and his ilk do not have our consent to govern.
You are not the only governed. The majority of the governed voted for Biden, as the majority voted for Hillary, but we have an electoral college that got Trump the win. Don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry that the majority of Americans disagree with you about who the president should be.
So, and that was the real energy behind what Trump was trying to do at January 6th. So, I was wondering if you went to, did you ever go into any rallies before January 6th?
No, so I was active in the local Republican Party in Washington County. I was the secretary there. I've done campaign walking with candidates and that kind of thing, but never been to a rally. I mean, frankly, a rally has no political power. I mean, you can get...
Guitarist says, those cities they named, surely the results from those weren't challenged due to the high minority populations in them.
Out there, and you might rouse your supporters, but a rally has no political power. What the left knows is if they go out and cause trouble, that has power because local.
The left goes out and causes trouble. Again, I know I'm beating a dead horse here. They could not be bigger hypocrites if they were doing it intentionally. They are in prison for doing violence to get their way politically, and they're like, the left is so violent. Hydrate.
So they'll do what they say and give them some money. Yeah. Right? The rally has no power.
Especially if the media is on your side. Yeah. Cover for them.
Exactly. So, no, I've never been to a rally of any kind. I just heard from a son about it. I had stopped listening to the news because I was so disgusted about November 2020. Because it was pretty clear early on that the political class in this country and the judicial class had no problem with what happened. Right? They got rid of Orange Man Bad, so they're fine with it. And that disgusted me so much I stopped watching the news. Then I had a son tell me about the Stop the Steal. I thought, well, whatever's going on in Washington, maybe this did the Republicans some spying. So
it's really amazing to find ourselves in days like now, and to be sitting here where we're sitting. And I'm what I think that the establishment didn't count on is us being able to have laptops to view our discovery that accidentally have a camera attached to it, so that we can actually get to know some of us while we're in here, because...
Oh, they're gonna get in trouble. Okay, so I missed this when I was listening the first time, apparently. I may have also been playing a video game at the time. That explains how they're filming. So they were given a laptop in order to view discovery for their case, and instead of doing what they were supposed to, they are filming this show without permission. Yeah, so they're not supposed to be doing this. If they haven't already gotten into trouble, they certainly will. That's kind of funny. That's a foolish mistake to make. You're only gonna probably get one episode out of this, and you didn't even get the audio right? That's a shame. Bravo Needs Bacon says, if the election was stolen, how the hell did Republicans in Congress still win their races? They already said they think it's because those were rhinos. Peep Lord says, Hannah, you're never gonna believe this, but I came into possession of some crazy dice. I think they're haunted or something, maybe super scienced. Their box says they're called the dice of societal need. When you roll them, you ask a question, and they're supposed to morph into the right amount of dice to answer the question succinctly. Every time I roll them at this show, they say, re-education, wellness facility. Is that just random nonsense words? Yes, random nonsense.
Because they...
Ask the Magic Conch next time. It's more reliable.
They love to characterize Trump supporters, and J6ers also. They love to characterize MAGA, but not have MAGA on to defend our views. So they don't give us the platform. One of the things that strikes me on the Sunday morning talk shows.
MAGA people get voiced in media constantly. What are you talking about? Especially in 2015, 2016.
CBS, ABC, NBC, Fox, PBS, all these Sunday morning talk shows, the political talk shows, they'll have a panel. And most of them are always liberal, right? There will be one or two Republican strategists, like, you know, Chris Christie or John Kasich or Caldwell. But they're always...
Liz Cheney.
Liz Cheney, oh, that's the Republican viewpoint. But she was voted out handily, easily. Republicans don't, like, conservatives, Republican and conservatives mean the same thing. Conservatives don't like her. But you've got one or two on this panel of 6 or 7 people, or 5 or 6 people. But none of those two Republicans they're both never Trumpers. They hate Trump. They're rhinos. So they want to characterize Trump. They want to characterize MAGA, but they never want to give us a seat at that table.
Yeah, I think part of that's because someone who's a diehard actual Trump supporter is rhetorically... How do I put this? They're rhetorically nonsensical. If you're actually going to go on a show and discuss politics, whether I agree with you or not, you need to be someone with some sort of internal view that is consistent and rhetorically stable. And I don't think MAGA Republicans are capable of that level of, like, consideration of how their viewpoints are seen by others, or consideration of how their viewpoints navigate within the network of politics of other people's views. So I kind of feel like if you had someone on the show, they'd just try and yell over everyone.
And never show the American people, oh, wow.
Are rhinos just right-wingers that don't like Trump? At this point, basically, yes. For those that don't know, rhino stands for Republican in name only, and it's what Republicans call Republicans that they don't like.
Actually are pretty cool and pretty fun, and you know what?
The equivalent on the left for Democrats would be like Blue Dog Democrat. I don't know if that term's as in fashion as it used to be, but you could also use Dino, I guess. But...
I say it before and I'll say it again. You know, being a Trump supporter is the modern day punk rock. It is
something Nazi punks fuck off.
More rock and roll than anything, because you know, like I said, the middle finger is more is more a part of the American spirit than we give it credit for. Everything from rock and roll to arguments over civil disobedience. I mean. You know, Martin Luther King was one of the biggest middle fingers, you know, to the establishment and to try and getting the right thing done. So, you know, if you want to...
It is fascinating to me, and I'm curious how much of this is rhetorical in order to try and get people to view him as sympathetic, or if he genuinely views himself in the same lens as, like, Martin Luther King Jr., or people who fought for other people who fought for civil rights. I can't tell if he is lying to the audience or if he is self-deluding. Kind of feels to me like he's self-deluding, because it sounds like he's genuine, albeit delusional. Captain Squid says, I'll admit I didn't foresee in 2024 Mitt Romney, Liz Cheney, and Paul Ryan would all be the outs for not being Republican enough, right? I thought Paul Ryan was going to end up running for president at some point. And, like, succeeding, at least in becoming the nominee, and at this point, I don't think he ever will. H. Baird says, forget rhinos, this is what we really need to worry about.
Tom Campbell. Is he what he tells us? Or is he what he's become over the years? A FCINO, fiscal conservative in name only. A wolf in sheep's clothing. A man who literally helped put the state of California on the path to bankruptcy and higher taxes. Fiscal conservative? Or just another same old tale of tax and spend, authored by a career politician who helped guide us into this fiscal mess?
Fun fact, taxing things and then using that income to run a government is the function of the government.
In the first place.
A major function of the government. Jesus Christ, that's funny. Benny Kagami says, also, whenever there's a Republican that they love, but then Trump gets mad at them, they all turn and pretend they always thought the said Republican was a rhino. This is the exact chain of events with Ron DeSantis. Oh, I know. It's hilarious. So predictable. Ditara says, what baffles me is that these guys will acknowledge that Nazis are bad, but seem to ignore neo-Nazis being staunch Trump reporters, or supporters rather, and people who are also January 6ers. Yeah, that's inconvenient. It's very inconvenient to their viewpoint.
My last point is that the Democrats seem to rail against systemic racism, systemic corruption, systemic this, that the system is bad, but they're arguing for larger government and more government spending, where honestly, any Democrats or any liberals watching today, if you truly believe in government corruption and systemic racism or systemic corruption, then you should be voting Trump and MAGA down the line.
Only if you're an accelerationist, and if you're an accelerationist, then go fuck yourself. Go to a different channel.
Because we are the middle finger to the establishment. Yes. We are.
You're not! You're voting for a billionaire who's been rich since, like, the 70s!
Are telling
really his whole life, but that's when he was an adult.
The establishment to go away and to defund themselves because we want to slash government spending and get rid of all these bureaucrats that are telling us what to do. So if you believe in freedom, you believe in liberty.
All these bureaucrats telling me I can't stop Congress from ratifying the votes.
I would like to know, Mr. Christensen, what you think, being behind the eight ball on so many aspects, from social media, mainstream media, academia, Hollywood. I mean, the power structures that we're dealing with are all like run by these leftist communists. But we know that the American people are patriots, and we know we're the silent majority. What do we have to do to fix the United States of America?
Weird that the silent majority can't get a majority vote for the president. Crazy. Toreador says adult in name only.
Well, again, like I said, I don't think the top-down big action is what's necessary. I think it's individuals. If Stalin was to start issuing orders to kill fellow Russians and everybody just ignored him, he'd be one guy spitting and nobody would pay attention to him. So we don't have to have that tyranny in America. We can get rid of it, but it's got to be individuals having the heart to do that. And in fact, I think this is kind of a difference between the way God does stuff and the way people do, mankind does things. The way God changes the world is He goes individually and changes your heart, and then you change your behavior. The way the world wants to change things,
they got the equipment to do this because they were given a laptop in jail to do discovery, because I think at least one of them is pro se, as in their own attorney, so they need something to access discovery, and they have used it instead to do this. I mean, probably in addition to. Probably gonna get the laptop taken away. Ashley One Up says, and as we know, Sam Beckett was responsible for inspiring baby Trump to get into real estate when he quantum leapt into a random cab driver. So is Sam responsible for all of this? Bet Ziggy didn't see that coming. They actually did a bit about that on the Colbert show back in the day. Terradona says, loud minority, silent majority, blah blah.
I have some big communist system.
Pro se equals likely sovereign citizen. There have been January 6th defendants that have done Sovsit stuff. I haven't covered it a ton. They have.
That forces people, changes the environment, and forces things on people. But that's not how you would change the world for the vote. You got to start with individuals. I think we as individual Americans can do that.
Yeah, and you made a great point in your book about diversity and how these leftists they talk about diversity all the time, but they don't they enforce uniformity.
Yeah.
So. Is it possible that we can actually read an excerpt from the book? A couple of pages?
Yeah. You have something in mind? Or?
Yeah, I had a really good section that I thought was really powerful.
Workbook?
Is it okay if I read it?
Sure.
Yeah.
It's already in the court record, so.
So, here. Let's take the example of a restaurant owner who refuses to enforce unconstitutional government edicts. The government sends a health inspector and some deputies, moral cowards, just doing their jobs, to shut the place down. The following
moral cowards, those health inspectors. I prefer my restaurants to be disgusting.
Nonviolent actions spring to mind. These examples are all nonviolent, but can come with consequences, legal and otherwise. They make choosing to do something to save the kid, America in this analogy, a moral decision requiring courage that must be seriously considered by each individual. Patriots could be on hand en masse to support the owner with a tidal wave of patronage. A worker in the sheriff's office or health office could send an early warning of the enforcement action. The roads in the area could be congested with vehicles to prevent government access. People could crowd in front of the officials and link arms to
telling a sheriff to, like, disagree and stop the federal government is right out of the sovereign citizen playbook. That's, like, straight from the posse comitatus stuff that originated a lot of the Sovsit beliefs. So that's, like, old school Sovsit strategy.
Impede their movement into the building. Cars could be placed to prevent official vehicles from leaving, with tow truck operators refusing to be in the service of petty tyrants. The air could be let out of the tires of official vehicles.
Again, he's describing, like, crimes. Whatever, do you, but you are describing things that will get you in trouble.
The above list of non-violent actions just took a few minutes to compile, and with a little imagination. Many more actions could be listed. With such non-violent impediments, the officials who snap their heels and throw up their arm and salute and agree to tyrannical orders would be lucky to harass one business owner in a full day. Their threats would be meaningless in the face of many owners standing up with the support of American patriots. While officials remain nonviolent in enforcing their unconstitutional edicts, there are many such ways of nonviolent resistance. Blocking officials, blocking vehicles, disabling vehicles and equipment, etc. Those on the left have no basis to be critical of this resistance and to get their panties in a wad and start wailing about how wrong that this is. For over 60 years, our rulers and self-proclaimed elitists have had no problem with and have even given encouragement to the left doing these actions and more during protests in service to their bogus, utopian moral compass.
Again, we're talking about, like, civil rights shit. Annoying. Sorry, I gotta pee again. I'm peeing a lot today. Let's see. Chair will tell you about, Lassie, ESP, extrasensory pooch. You're back.
Inviting them to tear down American society and history. Those on the right need to recognize that following a true constitutional moral compass to resist those engaging in assault.
A true constitutional moral compass, of course, which is whatever his personal interpretation of the Constitution is.
Assaulting the kid is a good and moral behavior. State and county officials also can take steps to defend the kid from assault and keep their oath to uphold the Constitution. Recall that point 2 of the compass says that the Constitution provides for each level of government to have its own sovereignty. It is a good first step to not obey the unconstitutional orders, but elected officials have a duty to do more to protect the people they serve. Is it acceptable to have the FBI conducting police state roundups in your jurisdiction, throwing a non-violent selfie taker into jail for 2 months with no trial, and threatening to do the same to irate parents at a school board meeting?
Yeah, you need to behave. Shocking, I know. Sorry that you don't like to follow the laws and you think that laws are only for those other people. It's so ironic. They're like genuinely like, yeah, when other people break these laws, of course it's abhorrent and wrong, but why are you not letting us break them? That's the vibe of the whole thing, is just, why can't we break the law?
If attacks on the American Constitution ratchet up in violence, the patriotic response should ratchet up as well. No hypothetical examples will be suggested for responses to violent provocations, as there are plenty of hack government lawyers who are just waiting to cry incitement. However, it turns out there is a perfect, recent historical example to examine: the January 6, 2021 Stop the Steal rally in Washington, D.C.
Penigagami with 40 bits says what's wild is that Biden literally could be more authoritarian if he wanted to. Republicans have literally handed him justification to crack down on whole states. He doesn't to avoid being seen as a dictator, but Republicans call him one anyway. This is all just going to prove that treating Republicans with charity is a fool's errand because they will not return it in kind. Granted, I don't know what he can do at this point without issuing martial law. I don't think it needs to get anywhere close to that, but I don't know. Toreador says, every day I become just that little bit more Dionysian. Wine and music and good food and soft beds. I can't deal with all this worldly stuff. A curse of one of Zeus's sons. To be immortal as God, but to still feel the desires of a mortal for earthly things. Dramatic.
Amen. Who wrote that? That was good.
It just seems so... It seems so simple, you know, the fix. One of the things that frustrates me a little bit, I see it changing a little bit, is that liberals typically have no problem telling everyone what to do. So their activism comes easy, they have activists galore. Conservatives on this side of the aisle, we typically want to be left alone, we want to raise our families, we don't want to...
You're antisocial, you're misanthropic, you generally hate other people in society as a whole, so it's difficult for you to get together and actually make plans that make sense.
Tell us we want small government, we don't want to be involved with government, because we want small government. But that leaves us at a disadvantage when it comes to activists. We don't produce the amount of activists that are willing to get out there and...
Well, I mean, this solution might be easy because basically it's don't do things.
Just don't do it. Just don't follow the stupid rules. Yeah. Give them the middle finger.
That's worked out great for you so far. I'm sure this podcast is going to help too.
Constitution, don't do it.
Yeah.
So maybe this is easy for us.
So I would also ask, like, the problem with the media. What would your suggestion be to, bring the media back, or create our own media, or something
well,
like that?
Yeah, certainly, because when I was
Because apparently Fox News, Breitbart, and One America News aren't right-wing enough. Hydrate. Can do.
right for governor, I had this leftist magazine lady, a journalist, called up and asked me why was it January 6th where 5 police officers died. And I said, that's been bogus for months and months now. I asked her, does it bother you at all that you're writing an article exactly the same as a government propaganda hacker write? Went over her head.
Disagreeing with me is writing government propaganda.
She did. Well, but that's what she was doing. She's writing an article. She supposedly had an independent liberal magazine, and she's writing exactly what a government hacker wrote. So,
H-Bird says, for people who just want to be left alone and don't like telling others what to do, they seem to have strong opinions on where I can legally pee or what medical care I can legally get. What's sad is that these people are so dim-witted they'll never see the hypocrisy. Luckily, it doesn't matter. I don't think they'll be voting anymore, so...
Media's got to be around somehow.
Not just the media, but their point about the 5, killed officers on January 6th that does not exist. Troy Nels and...
It so doesn't exist that you have a literal number, a specific number, 5 that were not killed.
Eric Swalwell got into it in one of their committee meetings. And so, let me recall, they had a witness that they were hearing from a witness that happened to be at January 6th. Eric Swalwell basically said something along the lines of 5 officers were killed that day, and we're going to listen to this lady who was here, or something like that. Troy Nels shoots back at him and about his Feng Feng relationship with Feng Feng, the Chinese spy, and that he's still there. The problem here is, and I may be a little wrong about exactly what was said, but it was about January 6th and the 5 officers being killed that Swalwell said. And then Troy Nels referenced Swalwell's relationship with the Chinese spy. And what ended up being stricken from the record was what Troy Nels said about Eric Swalwell and the Chinese spy, instead of the fact that Eric Swalwell just said 5 officers were killed on January 6th. And we never pushed for that, though. Our Republican elected leaders never asked for that to be stricken from the record when they're in committee meetings. They let the Democrats say 5 officers were killed or whatever. It just really is very frustrating.
Because it appears that people like Ron McDaniel and other party apparatus members are they're only focused on getting more money from lobbyists so they can buy themselves fancy things and live a nice life for themselves and their family, but they don't do the work that's required to actually build a political party. I don't understand why they're allowed to remain in power while they don't train. They need to have training for the politicians, for the congressmen and the senators on tactical congressional techniques. So when you're having a
tactical congressional techniques, what does that mean to you?
Debate to pull different strings and defeat the enemy in the argument. So what happens, like you're talking about, the Democrats will when somebody will say something, that they'll aggravate our side, and then our side will respond with an emotional reaction, and then they'll say, "Oh, see, that was a personal insult, and it should be stricken from the record." That's a trick. You got to learn how to do those political tricks, and you don't have a party leader that's teaching you how to do that. So you keep getting, even though you have the right point, the right sentiment, you don't know how to deliver it in a way that actually defeats the opponent. And so that's another major problem with our party is the inner workings. We don't go in there and change people like Ronald McDaniel and her weak, frankly, very weak people that have been convincing basically all of our politicians to behave like rhinos, to obey the corporations and don't worry about the will of the people. That's difficult. That's hard to do that. It's easy to just take the money and give us lip service and tell us platitudes while we continue to fund foreign wars. And then you come around and ask us, "Oh, can you help send your kids, your children, to the war to fight for us, so our corporate investments can go up?" No, enough. No more of this. We want the Republican Party to fight for the people, not for the corporations.
In other words, we want an opposition party.
Yes,
that's so much to ask.
like the United States was the opposition to the king.
The United States had a lot more going for it than just being against something. I find it wild for anyone to be wanting to be an opposition party, to have yourself defined not by what you want to do, or want to, like, have happen, but what you don't want to happen. We all have things we don't want to happen, but to be defined by them, that sounds miserable. That sounds so miserable. H. Baird says, the weird militarization of everything is further proof that a lot of these people never got over 9/11. The obsession with the military only started in the 2000s. I mean, I'm not old enough to have an opinion on that either way. I know it got way worse after 9/11, but I was 7 when 9/11 happened. Chitara says, the guy on the right is way too brown to be cool with the potential fascist takeover by a guy who's supported by white nationalists. People always make exceptions for themselves. They always think, well, I'll be the one that'll be fine.
That's the exact same sentiment.
Let's see some middle fingers in Congress. There's nothing more American than the middle finger. I will say it again. I just feel like whether it's the Tea Party, the Boston Tea Party, or the Revolution itself, or the states' rights argument during the mid-1800s.
What movement in the mid-1800s? The states' rights movement in the mid-1800s. The states' rights movement to do what? I can't believe we threw that in there. No one even asked him.
You've got that rebel spirit, they say. It's a middle finger.
Rebel spirit. Again, he is both trying to say Martin Luther King Jr. good, and he is like Martin Luther King Jr., but he is also like the South during the Civil War. Those two things don't mesh. Those are very different.
The spirit of Dr. King and the protests and the freedom rides, and it's the middle finger. And rock and roll is American.
Oh wait, those were freedom riots, but BLM, those are bad ones.
That's a middle finger, to the man, But I would love to, get your last word, your last thoughts. Do you have any final thoughts or encouragements or to the American peoples, that are watching? Hopefully we've encouraged enough independents and Democrats possibly to be watching right now that are interested in what we have to say. So
this video has 6,000 views.
I'd really love to hear some of your final thoughts on anything you'd like to round out or give the American people.
I don't think it'll be swaying any elections, is all I'm saying.
Well, so I personally think that everybody in here in orange is here to be made an example of. So the reason we're being given 7 and 9 year sentences for defending yourself from being beaten is because we're the peasants that they're cutting the heads off and putting on pikes in front of the castle gate. Because they want the peasants to get scared and go home. So that's why this apparatus and this
we're almost done. This has 5 more minutes.
Communist kangaroo courts are giving 10-year sentences for political dissonance is because they were trying to scare the rest of America to go home and accept what they're doing to America. So, I'm not real happy about being a head on a pike. My wife we lost our farm. She's in the middle of selling it. She's living in an RV on my kid's driveway right now. Trying to wait.
Wow, sounds like you ruined your and your family's life. That's a shame.
Place to sell so we can get another house. We haven't been apart for more than a couple of weeks since I was 21. So that was 40.
If I was the wife, I'd straight up cash in and write a book about what an idiot my husband was who did January 6th. I'd be like, I was married to a January 6ther. Here's what a nightmare it was. Go on a fucking book tour.
4 years ago. We've been married 44 years. So I'm not happy about being a head on a pike. But you know what? I love America enough that I'll do it. And it seems like Americans should be, who love America should be willing to do the same. And frankly, they don't have enough lawyers to put 100 million heads on a pike. So, we stand up for America, we'll win. If we don't, they'll win.
If someone with a family, property, a career, an age like Reed stood up and fought, and you don't, you have no excuse at this point.
Group B, thanks for 40 months, says 40 months. Time sure flies when you're roasting the hogs. Love what you do. Thank you, and thank you for your subscription. It really helps. If you don't have one, by the way, it always helps to subscribe to the channel. Not only do you not get ads, but it helps make sure the show can keep going. So, appreciate it.
I'm sorry. Everyone has to step up at this point.
Yeah, and what we're asking is pretty simple. Just don't do stuff.
Yeah.
Please. Someone says, do some constitutional, say, no, I'm an American, I believe in the Constitution. That seems pretty
I also believe in the Constitution in the sense that I recognize it as the, original governing legal text of the United States from which our laws and norms flow. I don't accept your interpretation.
Yeah, I know that it's been an honor getting to know you, and I know the men in here respect you very much, and it's an honor to be able to call you a friend and call you a, I'd like to say a brother, but you're maybe uncle, or but it's an honor to call you a brother.
All geezers except
yes. And I know, it's thank you for, if anybody would like to get to see more content like this, please, or get to know us better, us J6ers better in our own words, please visit wearegoodmen.com. And I will also very strongly encourage you to please buy this book. Go to savethekid.com and buy this book. Man, buy one for every single one of your family members. Send them in for Christmas presents. Do whatever you need to do. I know this will be probably released, this podcast, next year. But hey, Christmas 2024 is good. It's election year. Let's do it. I love you, sir, and it's really an honor to know you. And it's an honor to suffer alongside you and be.
It's an honor to suffer alongside you. When was this recorded? It was uploaded yesterday. So I'd imagine yesterday, day before.
And a fellow Patriot head on a pike next to your head on a pike.
I tell my wife I haven't hung around with guys since I was 21 years old.
Well, thank you for coming on. Thank you for showing the American people who you are and letting us get to know you better and sharing that with the American people. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right.
And Trump won.
Trump definitely won.
They said next year is 2024. Oh, they probably just fucked up then. They just misspoke. Because this is recent. This is not old.
No doubt.
Oh yeah, I looked at the website.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
it's
of
this.
the United States of America.
Yeah, they did a single where the January 6 prisoners all sang the national anthem, and they were selling it as a single to raise money for their legal defense. Like they watched Full Metal Jacket, and at the end when they're all singing the Mickey Mouse Club theme song, they were like, yeah, let's get that vibe. That was awesome. Benigami says, dreams and nightmares are two sides of the same coin that help push people towards progress. Dreams give us hope and goals of what to fight for, and nightmares give you the fear of losing what you have to fight to stop that from happening. Too much of either is bad, but too much focus on dreams can cause lack of urgency. Too much nightmares can cause misery and paralysis.
And to the republic for which it stands. One nation, under God. Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is what plays when America falls in, like, a movie. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. If you were doing, like, a movie about the end of America, this would be the trailer song. Jesus Christ. Well, that was awful. So, thanks everyone for hanging out. I appreciate you dealing with that with me, because what a nightmare. And also that audio was rough. I don't know if they'll end up doing more episodes or if they're already in trouble. I genuinely have no idea. Excited to find out. Let's go ahead and see who we're gonna raid. Thank you everyone for hanging out. I appreciate it. Love you too, Mr. Blast. Let's see who we're gonna raid. Alright, I'll see y'all tomorrow. I'm probably gonna do sob sits tomorrow, unless something else comes up. So I'll see you then. Have a great night, everyone, and I'll see you. Have a good weekend if I don't see ya. And Sunday is Father's Day, so don't forget. You have a father worth worth celebrating. All right. Have a good night, everyone.